Good morning. Good morning, folks. Of course, we are here today, Tournament Tuesday, for Community Choice today. I didn't have time yesterday to spam tournaments like I had the last couple weeks, so sadly, not getting the live updates out to you here on day number 1 like we've been able to in June and July, but we're going to do low diamond. I gave you guys some choices. The choices were low diamond, historical gold 1949 era, or the new daily iron historical, and you guys spoke, and it was by and large low diamond was the choice. So we'll get to those two later on. They're a little bit harder to pull samples on anyway. We got relegated to gold. I only have one pack right now. We're going to save it till the end. The decimal's not looking good this season. We knew we were going to get relegated. It's normal. We get up to diamond for 1 week, go back down to gold. It's a struggle in gold this week, though. I haven't touched this team in a couple weeks. It's making me sad. But we'll get back to it. Yes, congratulations to Austin Hedges on being the new bronze catcher of choice. We'll look at him next week, I'm sure. But that's, no, not bronze cards today, sadly. My mice forever. It's going to be low diamond, and we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Let's just get right into it, and we're going to run through this. We'll open some packs at the end on maybe all 4 teams, and then we'll roll into the rest of the week, and hopefully, sadly, the low diamond is a little bit expensive. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you today, guys. These cards, they're just not cheap. Kind of part of why I wanted to do the Iron Historical, but again, it was going to be a super small sample size on that because we've only had, 4 tournaments at this point. So we did better than you did last week. That was our best week in Diamond this year. I think we're going to roll out next week and not be with the Friends List group next week and see if we can't do any damage in a regular Diamond League. But yeah, these cards these are expensive cards. You know, you've got, I mean, the first one we're starting out with at number 9 at catcher is a really, really expensive card. It's Smokey Burgess. It's hard to find. Solid offensive ratings versus righties. Grades out 5th offensively among catchers, over 800 plate appearances. I will say these are not a huge sample size here. You can see I think I got a pretty decent sample size on a lot of these guys. You got Joe Mauer with 10,000 plate appearances there. So it's been about a week worth of data. You're going to see the numbers are the same on both sides just because this is the first time I've ever tracked low diamond. My AI put together team has not been successful so far. So maybe we'll improve on that today and see how it goes. I don't know how many of these cards I actually have. So we'll see. Smokey Burgess at number 9. Number 9 defensively, I don't think that's a surprise here for Smokey Burgess. 39 catcher arm, 43 catcher ability, 32 catcher rating are just not great. I wouldn't go so far as to say unplayable. Well, you know what? Yeah, that's unplayable at the level of Diamond. This is a tough card to find. I think he's a DH. A lot of these are going to be DH plate appearances. They just don't change them from catcher to DH for, personal reasons. And so I have to imagine that these are designated hitter numbers. Again, pretty small sample size here. 262 average is, pretty good for a catcher. 307 on base percentage, 359 slugging, 666 OPS, 296 weighted on base average are all basically 4th through 6th in all of your rate categories. Doesn't really run, doesn't strike out much, doesn't, middle of the pack and walks. So number 1 in strikeout avoidance. The catcher ERA, all of the defensive stuff is pretty bad. 1.5 stolen bases against per game. Runners thrown out percentage of 14.04. And again, keep in mind that I have a feeling some of this is a DH, so it's probably even worse than these numbers would be my guess. What's up, Rom3S? And so splits versus righties, pretty heavy splits versus righties. I think he's a guy who can get on base for you versus righties, but he's not going to play good defense at catcher. And so I think he's more of a designated hitter. And I really don't know how much use you're going to, I'm going to be honest, I haven't looked at these cards at all yet. So I don't know what we're going to see today. It's going to be just as much of a surprise to me as it is to you. Maybe more of a surprise to me than it is to some of you who play this format a lot. So Smokey Burgess comes in at number 9. And so there you go. Number 8 is Build a Legend, Mike Piazza. and his 665 plate appearances, he's grading out 7th defensively, 30 catcher arm, 56 ability, 35 catcher defense rating. Not good defensively, a little bit better than Smokey Burgess, but not by much. That catcher ability just slightly higher. He splits versus lefties, not as big of a split, but still pretty significant. You got 8 points of contact, 2 points of gap, 7 points of power, 7 points of eye, and a point of avoid K is towards lefties. So, you know, if you're all in on offense, I mean, there's probably better guys out there too. So there you go. That is Mike Piazza at number 8. As far as offensively, he's grading out number 4. Let's see if we can figure out why. OPS is 5th. Weighted on base average is 5th. Runs created is 5th. Walks 3rd. Strikeout 6th. Hasn't attempted a stolen base yet. So people are being smart with him. Home runs, 13 home runs per 600 is second among catchers in the format. 238 batting average and a sub 300 on base percentage, none of which are particularly good. He comes out number 8 out of 9. We only had 9 qualifiers at catcher for these tournaments this week. Good morning, Brent. Roy Campanella Special Edition comes in at number 7. I believe this is one of the Dodgers collection set cards. Huge splits towards lefties. You got 14 points of contact, 12 points of gap, 20 points of power, 5 points of eye, and 13 points of avoid K. He needs to be platooned if you're using him, and even then, he's not grading out very good offensively. 34 points worth of value is 8th out of 9, a 227 average, a really bad 279 on base percentage, but still just 7th out of 9. 364 slugging percentage, 643 OPS, 285 weighted on base average. None of those rate stats are particularly good. WAR is 1.6 at 5th. Number 1 in home runs, 16.73 home runs per 600. I'm a little surprised to see that number that high. He's the only guy close to him. Let's see, that's 3 home runs per 600 plate appearances ahead of the number 2 guy, which is so... Solid power numbers for Roy Campanella. Steals a base here and there. Looks like, what do we got? 6 stolen bases or so out of 3,900 plate appearances. So not awful. Pretty bad. I wouldn't put him in my offense because he runs. 131 strikeouts is 4th. And walks is 36 at 7th. 7th in runs created per 600. So this is where you start looking at defense, though. He's 5th in defense, a 62 catcher ability, an 84 catcher arm, and an 82 catcher rating. I think we're going to see some guys higher up on the list that have a little bit better catcher ability. And so the combination of middling defense with almost no offense out of Campanella besides home runs is putting him here at number 7. Number 6 is... your second most used player, Charles Johnson, 5,200 plate appearances for him. Number 1 defensively, Hardware Heroes Charles Johnson from 1997. Some of us old people remember that World Series fondly. That was a good series. He is, however, grading out 9th offensively. It's pretty bad. It's really, really bad offensively for Charles Johnson. A 198 batting average, 259 on base percentage. Yuck. 313 slugging, 572 OPS, weighted on base average is 256. WAR is 1.03, which has him 7th. Is 4th in home runs, 9th in strikeouts, 5th in walks, 9th in runs created, under 50 runs created per 600 plate appearances for Charles Johnson. He is your number 1 rated catcher in the format right now. Your number 9 rated offensive catcher in the format right now. He comes in at number 6 overall. He's one of those guys that for you folks who are all in on defense, he's the guy, right? He's gonna be one of those guys. 5,200 plate appearances for him. We'll compare him to Joe Mauer once we get up to Mauer. But 92 rated Hardware Heroes Charles Johnson at number 6. Number 5 is one of our favorite gold cards, Biz Mackey. Maybe not one of our favorite gold cards, but he's grading out 7th offensively and 4th defensively. So you're getting a little bit of defensive value here. 95 catcher ability, 96 catcher defense rating, and a 68 catcher arm. Puts him right in the middle of the pack among these catchers. Has the ability to run just a little bit, although his net steals is just 1. 53% stolen base percentage is pretty ugly for Biz Mackey. Looks like maybe he's stolen 2 or so bases and got caught once or something. I'm not really sure. Splits towards righties just a little bit. Oh, we didn't go over that either today. So pitchers are starting pitchers right now 77% left-handed, 22% right-handed. Relief pitchers 77% right-handed, 23% left-handed. So lots of lefty starting pitching and lots of righty relief pitching, which is interesting. Splits for batters are 54% right-handed, 37% left, and 9% switch hitters. Mackey splits towards righties. Not huge splits like we saw on some of the earlier catchers, but he is fifth in average at 245. Not terrible. 278 on base percentage is pretty bad. 362 slugging, sixth in home runs, third in steals, and eighth and ninth in strikeouts and walks combined. So overall, not looking too much better than that Charles Johnson offensively, and is clearly a step down defensively. Might be a little bit cheaper than Charles Johnson at this point, but who knows? Mackey plays a little bit of defense and a little bit of offense, but not much. Runs a lot of 5 lefty starting pitching rotations. Yeah, I'm seeing that. That's what it looks like with the almost 80% left-handed starting pitchers. Number 4, gross. We're just going to skip this one. No. Jorge Posada. I mean, it's a good year for the Red Sox. 2007 special edition Jorge Posada. Of course, the Red Sox won the World Series in 2007, which is nice. Posada's number 1 offensively among catchers, but pretty bad defensively. So this is the guy that maybe better as a designated hitter than Smokey Burgess. Let's look into the numbers just a little bit. Second in average, second in on-base percentage, first in slugging for Jorge Posada, third in home runs. Set him to not run. Somebody's got him running way more than he should be. He doesn't have a successful stolen base yet. Looks like 2 attempts for him and got caught both times. Seventh in strikeouts, number 1 in walks. Oh, hi, you Karan. Sorry guys, I didn't mean to summon you, Karan. My bad. Number 1 in runs created at 98.39. That's a lot of runs created. Almost 100. Second in weighted on base average and second in WAR. But 8th in defense, the catcher arm catchability. It's really, he's a designated hitter. And again, it's hard for me to say that a catcher is going to be a designated hitter. I need to get overall hitters back into it somewhere, and I'm redoing the whole thing this week. So I am off this week from the stadium. I'm going to have time to start over, and my plan is to get, designated hitters back in there and get the, the utility guys back in there too. I miss having that stuff. When I went to this new sheet, I wasn't able to do it, but I'm starting over, and it's going to be probably a similar looking but newish presentation next week. Number 3 is Miguel Montero. This is a card I have. All of these plate appearances might be mine at this point. Montero grades out number 2 defensively, but it's a very arm and catcher defense heavy defensive ability. I know catcher ability is really important, and he's only a 79 in catcher ability. So when we talk about him being number 2, it's just because of the way those ratings are shaking out. Splits a little bit towards lefties in contact, power, and avoid K. Gap is equal. You've got 15 points of I versus righties. So a little bit higher on-base percentage, a little bit higher batting average, and more power versus lefties. And with 77% lefties, he's giving you some defense. He's giving you some offense as well. AI always puts Posada in there. I don't have the Posada at all. I don't think so. Montero, here, let me get it open. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's my Twitch drop. I thought I won something. I did not win something. It's just a Twitch drop. And so Montero gives you just a little bit of offense, like a smidge of offense. He's 6th out of 9 with some decent defense to go along with it. But again, the catcher ability of 79 is not quite up there with some of those higher guys. Oh, no, I don't have Montero in there. My AI put Roy Campanella and Mike Piazza in, which might explain why I haven't won one of these tournaments yet. So, yeah, good job, AI. Live Carlos Correa's in there, too. Solid job by my artificial intelligence. Let me tell you about my online leagues AI yesterday, getting my number 2 starter hurt for 7 months in a playoff race by ignoring my rotation. I won't go too much further into that. How expensive is spinning up a low diamond team? It's not cheap. I mean, you can throw a team together pretty easily with some of the special edition cards, I think. But putting a truly competitive team together, I don't think is going to be very cheap at all. And again, Montero's this is a decent card, decent defensive card, gives you a little bit of offense. I think it's a solid choice in both worlds. I played him as on my main team for a little bit as my backup to Ernie Lombardi. Yeah, the franchise heroes. Some of the Build a Legends will fit in here. Let's see, you've got the Lucroy in here, which we haven't seen yet, so it's probably going to be number 1 or number 2. And then some of those other things. I mean, you can build it relatively cheap. You're going to have to mess around with your strategies to make that cheap catcher or that cheap roster work. I think it's doable, but it's going to be tough. Jonathan Lucroy comes in at number 2. So we've got a 76 catcher ability here. He is grading out 6 defensively overall, but that 76 catcher ability grades favorably with Montero. The 55 arm, 71 catcher rating are a little bit lower, obviously, which is why he drops down to 6 defensively. But right now, I think he's fourth in catcher ability from all the guys we've seen. Splits pretty heavy versus lefties in gap power, but his contact and his avoid Ks both split pretty heavy towards right-handed pitchers. But I think he can play versus both. His power is going to be about the same. The eye is going to be about the same. You'll have a higher batting average here with versus righties, but you're going to get a little bit more of a slugging percentage out of lefties. So 6 defensively, number 3 offensively, 3rd in every single rate stat among catchers. You think Hedges is the budget option at catcher? I can get on board with that. You find that low diamond can be built with the lock mission cards if you're doing a lot of missions. Yeah, I think that's fair. Shaco 6 is there's a lot of pretty good mission cards in the low diamond set. But I think that some of the special editions that you get from tournaments are pretty good. I mean, you can build it. I certainly think you can do it. You can get a team together pretty cheap. It's just gonna take some work to make it work. Lucroy, number 3 offensively, 6 defensively. Again, the ratings look okay. I think he'll continue to have a pretty solid batting average at 1,700 plate appearances at this point. I think it's a low 6th. I think the fact that it is catcher ability heavy is good, but the fact that his arm is so low, it could cause some issues too. And I think these are probably, you can kind of ignore his catcher ERA, runners thrown out percentage, stolen bases, because he plays some first base too. And I think he might be playing some designated hitter in there as well. Who knows? But good defense, good offense. If you're looking for a little bit of both, then Lucroy might not be a bad choice. Nathan is not usable in Diamond. That's fair. Be the same. Yeah, I think that's fair that Huseman is, worked on the missions, get a competitive diamond team, and then get that low diamond team going. Number 1 is franchise heroes Joe Mauer. Mauer's grading out 3rd defensively, 73 catcher ability, which is just slightly below Lucroy and slightly below Montero, but he's got a pretty good arm and a pretty good catcher rating, defensive catcher rating too. And he's giving pretty solid offense right now for Joe Mauer. 10,000 plate appearances, so it's a pretty large sample size. He's number 1 at every single category except for slugging. Doesn't hit a ton of home runs. There's not a ton of power here, but good batting average at 303, which seems exorbitantly high. 358 on base percentage, 407 slugging, 765 OPS, 340 weighted on base average, and 4.23 WAR per 600. 82 runs created per 600, which is a good 17 runs below the number 1 offensive guy, which was Lucroy. So keep that in mind. It's the runs created is a little bit low, but everything else is pretty solid for Mauer. Am I nuts for using Yasmani Grandal instead of Campanella or Posada? I don't necessarily think so. Let's take a look at that Grandal. We'll see if there's any in this tournament. There he is. With a 92 ability, 88 catcher rating, and a 61 catcher arm, I don't think you're necessarily nuts. I don't think you're going to get much offense out of him. This is going to be a sub 200 batting average, I think. We can look at Grandal and see what I have in a small sample size on him. Let's go over to here and see what we have. 376 plate appearances, 132 batting average, 242 on base percentage. Those are not good numbers. 227 slugging, 469 OPS. I don't know that a 242. I would go so far as to say this is going to kill your team offensively. 213 strikeouts per 600. But again, it's a pretty small sample size at that point. for Grandal. That card cannot hit at all. You'd rather sell Grandal and use the perfect points to get Montero. I think that's fair. Yeah, Grandal looks pretty bad offensively. What's up, Johnny Balls? I'm very angry that you're late. So, there's just nothing I can do about being angry that you're late. Joe Mauer came in at number 1 at catcher. Are there any other catchers you wanted to look at? I think that's pretty much it in the low diamonds. Hedges would bat 0 in low diamond. Yeah, but you'd probably have a catcher ERA of full run and a half below some of these other guys too. I like Montero. It's a pretty cheap card. It's like I said, I used him as my backup in Perfect League for a little bit, and he was. I got to use this word once a day. He was perfectly cromulent as a backup catcher in all the way up to gold and a little bit in diamond. He's a solid defensive replacement for some of the other guys too. And so that is my feelings on Montero. I like the Montero card. I think this Joe Mauer card looks pretty good too, though. But again, you start looking at that catcher ability, and if all you want is catcher ability, it's got to be Charles Johnson, right? So let's see. We had Biz Mackey at a 95. You got Charles Johnson to 104 catcher ability, and of the 9 qualifiers, those are the only 2 guys above 70. So, I mean, you kind of have to pick your poison here. The 2 guys who are really good defensively don't hit much, and the guys who are mediocre but hit, you got the Mauer, you got I think Mauer plus Montero, maybe even like a Johnson with a Mauer backup or something like that. There's a lot of different options here, but you really kind of do have to pick your poison with these guys. So because they all have, even at low diamond, these cards all have their warts, right? On to first baseman, where we had 10 qualifiers. Joe Mauer got 600 plate appearances at first baseman, so he's going to show up on this list too, which is hilarious to me. Number 1 most used is Derek Lee. We'll see if you guys are doing it right. Bob Allison splits versus lefties, and very, very, very heavily splits towards lefties. 77 contact versus 71. 17 points of gap. You got 20 points of power, 19 points of eye. His avoid K splits a little bit versus righties, just 4 points there. Defensively, he's grading out number 8 out of 10. Offensively, he's grading out 6th. I'm a little bit surprised about that. I'm not going to lie. Does steal a base here and there. 2.39 steals per 600 without being caught. 16 home runs per 600 puts him 3rd. So 104 power versus the left-handed pitching that is so heavy in this format is leading to about 1,700 home runs per 600 for Bob Allison. 7th in batting average at 245, 6th in on-base percentage at 328, which would have been number 1 at catcher, by the way. 385 slugging is number 8. I don't know. No, that's not true. Mauer's above 328. 713 OPS. Charles Johnson is expensive and hard to find. I think that's probably because he's the only low diamond that has a really high catcher ability. OPS at 713, weighted on base average 320 for Bob Allison, and WAR under 1 puts him 8th. He's 10th overall, 8th defensively, 6th offensively. On to number 9, power against lefties for Allison. High Pockets Kelly comes in at number 9. This is your special edition High Pockets Kelly. He's got heavy splits versus righties, so he's not going to start very often, but maybe come off the bench late against those left-handed pitchers. Pretty solid first base defense, 73 range, 96 first base rating, 49 error rating. Do not think about Charles Johnson unless you pull him in a pack. Yeah, I think that's fair. You're going to give away your live diamond team build. Don't listen to live cards are the way to go, Glevin says. Ultimately only worth it if you use them to get Bill Legend Piazza. That's fair too. High Pockets Kelly, 81 contact, 85 avoid Ks, 103 power versus righties. Problem is there's very few righties in the format. Grading out 9th in average, 10th overall offensively, 10th in on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, weighted on-base average, 0.29 WAR per 600 plate appearances, 14 home runs. So he's middle of the pack in home runs. Doesn't really run. Strikes out, doesn't strike out much, but doesn't walk much either, which is killing his on-base percentage. I would go so far as to say I'm a little surprised to see it this low, but I have a feeling that it's just because he doesn't get to play all that often versus righties. You see him probably a lot as a sub versus lefties, which might be killing his numbers a little bit. I would really, really like to get split numbers at some point in the future, but I don't know if it's going to be any time soon. High Pockets Kelly comes in at number 9. Number 8 is Build-A-Legend Diamond, Paul Goldschmidt. Interesting splits for Paul Goldschmidt. He's grading out 7th defensively, 9th offensively, 6th in average, 7th in on-base percentage and slugging, 9th in OPS and weighted on-base average, and 7th in WAR. You get 13 points of contact, 12 points of gap, 20 points of power, but you get 15 points of eye and 7 points of avoid. 15 points of eye go towards righties, and 13 points of avoid K towards lefties. So splits versus lefties, much like his other counterparts, we know that the gold, the silver, Paul Goldschmidt's all lean heavily towards lefties. So it's no surprise that the low diamond one does as well. Unfortunately, he's not quite a masher the way that the other guys are. Budget card, I think at this point, it's probably not too difficult to build the diamond Paul Goldschmidt at this point. It might be one of the cheaper options near the top, because I know that, you've got a John Kruk up here, and then the franchise heroes Derek Lee. Again, it's going to be pretty expensive trying to build a first baseman at this point. So a 249 average, all of these rate stats are pretty low. 15 home runs, so he'll hit for a little bit of power, not a ton. And he can run a little bit as well for Goldschmidt at number 8. At number 7 is, I got an itchy nose. 7 is John Kruk, who's your second most used. Splits really heavy versus righties. You've got 16 points of contact. You've got 19 points of gap, 15 points of power, 18 points of eye, and 14 points of avoid Ks. Pretty solid option as a platoon versus righties to play once every 5 games for you, for John Kruk. I think those numbers look okay. Offensively, he's grading out number 1. Defensively, he's pretty bad at first base out of the rest of these guys. But I will say, I don't think that a 50 range 62 first base 44 error rating is necessarily unusable. The arm can be almost completely discounted because it's first base. The double plays, as a first baseman, he's not going to be turning double plays in the middle. All he's got to do is catch the ball. So he is a little bit short for a first baseman. I'm actually taller than him, so I am not wider than him yet. I'm working on it. But John Kruk comes in 10th defensively and number 1 offensively, which puts him at 7 overall. 4th in average, 3rd in on-base percentage, 4th in slugging, 3rd in OPS, 2nd in weighted on-base average, 4th in WAR. Number 1 in runs created at 84.73 runs created per 600 plate appearances. Top half in strikeouts, top 3rd in walks. Somehow successfully stole some bases as well, 2.18 per 600 and 12.5 home runs per 600 for Kruk. You pulled Johnson in a pack, nice. And so John Kruk comes in at number 7. I think he looks solid as a platoon versus righties. You use him in right field in your perfect team league. So let's see, 5,600. I don't think we're going to see him in right field or left field because there's probably not enough plate appearances to go around based off of what I'm seeing here. But 51 range, 55 arm, 48 error. I don't know. Maybe. I'd almost prefer him as a DH at that point. But again, it's your job to build your team. You're surprised he's hitting so well in such a heavy lefty starting pitcher environment. I guess he does hit the right-handed pitchers well. And so I'm gonna be honest. He probably plays as a platoon for the most part, because once you get up into live diamond, guys are pretty good. Folks are pretty good at building teams at this point, except for my AI. So I think what you're probably seeing here, I think as a straight platoon, I think you can probably coax even better numbers out of him. The problem is that he's going to be playing at least once every time through the rotation against the lefties, right? Because of the way fatigue works and everything, he's gonna your other side of your platoon is not going to be able to play 4 times out of every 5 games just because of fatigue. So he's going to get some right-handed stuff in there, or he's going to face some lefties in there. And so I really think that versus righties, his numbers may even be slightly better than this. You love that he finished his career with exactly 100 home runs and a batting average of exactly 300. That's pretty awesome. I did not know that. for about John Kruk. Number 6 is Fred McGriff. He's your 8th most used. Another guy that splits really heavy towards righties, but is grading out 7th offensively, grades out 6th defensively. So he's getting some points for his height. He's got 5 inches on Kruk. The error rating's a little bit better. The first base rating's a little bit better. And the range is right around the same. 10th in batting average, though, at 226. It's a pretty low batting average, but he does hit for power. 20.5 home runs per 600 puts him 2nd. 9th in strikeout, so he strikes out a lot. Walks quite a bit too. 53 walks per 600 has him 4th among first basemen. 5th in slugging, 7th in OPS, 7th in weighted on base average, and 6th in runs created per 600. Another guy who I think can platoon versus righties for sure. Is he a better option than Kruk? Probably not. I would probably, unless you just really need somebody who's going to hit a little bit more home runs for you in your lineup, I actually kind of lean Kruk versus righties over McGriff, just because the ratings are a little bit more consistent across the board there. That's the one that concerns me. The 45 avoid case concerns me. That's really low for... Oh, there goes my internet again, huh? That's really low for low diamond. 45 avoid Ks is why you're seeing this 226 batting average. It's bad. The on base percentage is good though, so the eye makes up for it a little bit. But you know, you're gonna get what you get with Fred McGriff. It's always gonna be a low batting average. I think he's gonna have a ton of strikeouts for you in in low diamond. And so I just think that 45 avoid K scares me off a little bit on McGriff, and I would actually lean Kruk, as you know most people appear to be doing. He's the number 2 most used. Live Matt Olson comes in at number 5 with 1,600 plate appearances. And you know, 8th offensively, grades out well defensively. He's getting a ton of bonus points for being a solid defensive first baseman. Number 3 defensively, 8th, 9th in average and on-base percentage, a sub 300 on-base percentage. I just can't live with that from my first baseman. But a 412 slugging percentage isn't bad. Number 1 in home runs. Number 1 in home runs among first basemen in low diamond for Matt Olson. I'm a little bit surprised about that. Splits pretty heavy towards righties. Another guy who splits towards righties, I would absolutely lean McGriff or Kruk over that. And, you know, this is from last month, so you can ignore that. I don't know did he change this month? Did he change yesterday? I really don't know. I haven't looked at the live card updates yet. AI prefers him to high pockets and Kruk. Interesting. You know, I wonder if he's my first baseman. Let's check. He's not. My AI went with High Pockets, Kelly, and Goldschmidt, and apparently no backup shortstop or center fielder. So really solid job by my AI, and I'm going to try to put an actual competitive team together today after this stream, because my team is not good. Mauer comes in at number 4. You know, he's grading out 9th defensively among first basemen. 2nd offensively among first basemen, 303 average, 358. All of his offensive numbers match up really well. He does have splits versus righties. We talked about him as a catcher. I prefer him as a catcher to as a first baseman personally, just because I think, you know, but obviously his rate stats match up pretty well among other first basemen too. He's still a 93. Okay, cool. Am I collecting Twitch drops while I'm streaming? I am, Johnny Balls. Collecting Twitch drops while I stream. We'll open those at the end because my chat is up. So I'm in the channel. That's where I chat with you guys. Is in the Out of the Park channel, because I can't get it on my chat live. Number 3 is the most used first baseman on the list, Derek Lee, who was also a proven winner with 30% of his points. This is a good card. Grading out 5th defensively and 3rd offensively, Derek Lee is right around 15 home runs per 600. 1,500 home runs per 600 plate appearances would be almost impossible. The only person who could pull that off is probably Chuck Norris. 4.19 stolen bases per 600 is number 1 among first basemen. 66% stolen base percentage, but when it's that low, it's not hurting you that much. It's 4 out of 6. So 274 average, 333 on base percentage are third and fourth. Slugging percentage is number 1. OPS is number 2. Weighted on base average is third, and WAR is second among first basemen. He's third in runs created among first basemen as well, out of 10, and grades out fifth defensively with a solid 88 first base rating, a 74 error rating, and he's 77 inches tall. That is 6'5" tall, if I'm doing math right. And so a 40 range is a little bit low, but otherwise his first base rating is pretty solid. For Derek Lee, he grades out at number 3. Chuck Norris does whatever he wants, Speaker 35. I don't know. It was the first thing that popped in my head after I said 1,500 home runs per 600. Derek Lee comes in at number 3. Splits 14 points a gap versus lefties, but 16 points of power versus righties. So he's going to hit versus lefties and righties. You've got 9 points of I versus lefties and 4 points of avoid K versus righties. So I think he splits just a little bit towards lefties. I would err on the side of that. And with almost 80% of the starting pitchers being lefties, he looks pretty good. I think it's a good looking card. I'm not surprised that he's the most used. Derek Lee, John Kruk platoon looks kind of okay right now. High Pockets Kelly didn't look too bad either. We'll see who number 2 and number 1 are. Again, 30% of his available points going to Derek Lee, so he's a solid choice as your first baseman. Number 2 is Wally Joyner. Pretty heavy splits towards righties for Wally Joyner. I think that's where he's getting most of his numbers from, is in a platoon. And so defensively, he grades out number 2. Offensively, he's grading out number 5. It's a good looking card to platoon with Derek Lee. I definitely think Lee is probably, if you can only choose one, Lee would be the guy that I would go with at this point, just because of the splits there. But Joyner looks okay. Decent defensive value, 2nd in batting average, 5th in on base percentage, 2nd in slugging, 4th in OPS, 5th in weighted on base average, and 3rd in WAR. 4th in runs created per 600, and 1st in strikeout avoidance for Wally Joyner. So I'm just gonna go like this. I didn't do this at catcher. I'll figure out the catchers later, but I'll throw them into those lineups. I don't know if I have them or not right now. I have not pulled my collection over into this either, so it's not going to tell me whether I have them or not. Wally Joyner at number 2. Again, heavy splits versus righty, solid looking platoon. Texas Rangers. Yeah, I got you. If he did play baseball, what team would he be on? Yeah, Texas Rangers, of course. But because he's a American hero, he would play for the Red Sox. Kevin Youkilis comes in at number 1. Legendary Kevin Youkilis. Peak Boston Red Sox. Kevin Youkilis. Interesting. What do we have here? Plays a little bit of third base as well. We're not going to see him at third base. I don't think he looks playable in diamond at third base. That 45 arm is a little bit is pretty concerning. Solid error rating of 96 with a 76 range and an 88 first base rating. Number 1 defensively at first base. Offensively, he's grading out at number 4. I like it. I like this card. 251 average is a little bit low. It's, middle of the pack among all these first basemen. Number 2 in on base percentage. He is, after all, the Greek god of walks. 350 on base percentage with 72 walks per 600 plate appearances for Kevin Youkilis. Sadly, he does not run the bases very well. 384 slugging percentage is 9th. OPS is 5th. Weighted on base average is 4th. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good weighted on base average to go along with that defense at first base. WAR at 1.78. Runs created at 77 has him 5th, and he's 5th in strikeouts. Not a ton of power out of Uke, but Alex Verdugo has had a great couple days. Yes, I agree. Yesterday was a good day for Verdugo for sure. Platoon with Joyner, perhaps. 1 point of contact, 6 points of gap, 6 points of power, 13 points of I, and then 4 points of void K versus righty. So while I think, he could even be your everyday first baseman if he's all you have, but I would definitely try to platoon him. I think he'd be a good platoon with Joyner. You know what? I'm just going to do it. We're going to go and see if I can't track down a Kevin Youkilis someday. He's going to be the first baseman that I want. But I don't think you can go wrong with a Kruk and Joyner platoon, or Lee and Joyner platoon. Looks really good to me. Youkilis and Joyner platoon looks pretty good to me. Kruk didn't look terrible versus righties either, but obviously was a step down defensively from Joyner. A pretty big step down defensively from Joyner, so I don't think Kruk is a bad idea versus righties either. He is, after all, the number one offensive first baseman out here. Do I want him versus righties? What do we think? Joyner? I'm going to leave it at Joyner for now. Any data on Frank Howard? Let's find out. Ryan Howard, Ed Howard, Thomas Howard, Frank Howard, 48 plate appearances, does not look good. 196 batting average, 229 on base percentage, positively Grandal-ish. Actually, he's about twice the hitter Yasmani Grandal is. 413 slugging percentage, which is not terrible. 642 OPS is bad with a 413 slugging percentage. 279 weighted on base average. Lots of home runs for Frank Howard. 37 home runs per 600. If you just want home runs, perhaps. But again, that's a pretty small sample size, so keep that in mind on Frank Howard. Those are your first basemen. Moving on to our second baseman, we had only 6 qualifiers, so it looks like people have figured out who they want their second baseman to be. Number 6 is Tim Tuffle, who's your 4th most used over the last week, grading out 6 defensively. That is bad defense at second base, guys. 46 range with a 43 second base rating is bad. Yuck. With a 54 error and a 56 turn double play. This card is not usable at second base, in my opinion, defensively. That is bad. Really, really bad. Kruk is better than Joyner because he plays other positions. That's fair. Joyner only plays first base in a heavy... I agree, Will King. I think that is something to think about, too. 141 power for Frank Howard versus lefties. Yeah. I'm going to see if I can get my eyes on that card. Hello. We're up to 4 packs. It does not... There's one. There he is. Sadly, he also has a 59 avoid Ks and a 60. This is going to lead to a really low batting average, really low walks. Even though the batting average ball in play will be pretty good, and he will hit home runs. And defensively, not... I mean, he looks playable defensively as a first baseman. At 79 inches, he's really, really tall. And so that's going to help him out defensively at first base, too. I'm curious about this one. That obviously the 42 plate appearance sample size is super small. But I'm curious about this card. I don't think I have it. I don't think I have it. He needs Ted Williams to fix him. Maybe. Joyner only plays first. Yeah, that's fair, Will King. And then as a New Englander, you find it interesting that Yuka is married to Tom Brady's sister. Yes. He is married to Tom Brady's sister. He is Tom Brady's brother-in-law. That's an interesting looking card to me. I don't think... Where'd he go? I don't think the batting average necessarily stays below 200 versus lefties. I think it will versus righties. If he's playing... I mean, he's going to have to be platooned versus lefties. I think his batting average will stay below 200 versus right-handed pitching, and his on-base percentage will be... I mean, his on-base percentage might be below 200 versus right-handed pitching. That's how bad that looks to me. But a 60-59 I and avoid Ks with a 94 contact rating versus lefties, I could see it being in the 220 range. But again, I don't do the sciencey stuff like some of the other guys do, so that's kind of a wag. For me there. But yeah, he's going to hit home runs. Probably, if you can platoon him against lefties, he's probably going to be one of the better home run hitters in the format. At 79 inches with a 67 first base rating, the error rating of 12 is obviously concerning, so maybe as a designated hitter too, for Frank Howard. That error rating is really bad. But you just joined a low diamond tourney and have him versus left-hand pitching at first base. Fair enough. He's a tournament reward, so he's not easy to find. Fair enough. That's fair too. So anything on Bob Allison? Where'd it go? Bob Allison, well, does he play multiple positions? I got 754 total plate appearances for him. He didn't show up on the list for whatever reason. 245 average, 328 on base percentage isn't awful. 385 slugging, 713 OPS, kind of middling there. 320 weighted on base average isn't terrible. Mid-teens home runs, 63 walks, and 104. Lots of strikeouts, lots of walks for him. .88 WAR. Let's see if we can get our eyes on that card. Bob Allison. He does play multiple positions, so that's why he didn't show up, is because he's playing another position somewhere too. Ratings wise, looks a little, 26 error rating for. Okay, he looks okay at first base. Maybe as a right fielder, not really. Maybe as a left fielder. I think he's probably getting quite a bit of play as a left fielder for the games that he's in there. Looks to be an okay. I think it's going to stay a low batting average with that 46 avoid Ks and the 77 contact. Versus righties, he doesn't look very playable to me. Looks playable versus lefties, in my opinion. He was number 10 on the. Was he number 10 on the list? He might have been. Let's go back. He was number 10 on the list. Good catch. Good catch. So there we go. Yeah, that's what we're seeing for him. 245. So middle of the pack offense, kind of okay defense for Bob Allison. Tim Tuffle at number 6 among second basemen. Number 5 is Build a Legend Craig Biggio, second baseman. Splits versus lefties. 10 points of avoid K, 10 points of I. Power doesn't change. Actually has 1 point of gap towards righties and 7 points of contact versus lefties. So a little bit of a lefty split here. Pretty good base runner. Base stealer. 22 steals per 600. Number 1 in both steals and stolen base percentage among second basemen. That's pretty solid. 4th in average, 4th in on base percentage, 5th in slugging, 6th in OPS, and weighted on base average. That is out of 6. He is 4th defensively, grading out 6th offensively, 6th in runs created per 600. So he's an okay defender, not great. Definitely better than Tim Tuffle, who I think is not playable as a defensive second baseman, in my opinion. Splits towards lefties, which is good for the format. But again, kind of okay, not great offensive numbers for Craig Biggio. He is 5th out of 6. People really like that franchise hero Altuve and Evers and Madrigal. I'm not surprised about that. I was wondering if we were going to see Madrigal or Evers show up on this list. Ryan Sandberg comes in at number 4, and they're going to be in the top half. Build a Legend Sandberg comes in at number 4, grades out 5th defensively. Again, not great defense here. 58 range, 66 second base rating, 100 error. The error rating is good and helpful. The range is pretty low for Sandberg. Power splits towards righties. Everything else splits pretty heavy towards lefties, which is good. But offensively, he's still only grading out 5th out of all of these guys. 6th in average at 250. 6th in on-base percentage at 311. Slugging percentage, OPS, he's 4th. And weighted on-base average, he's 5th in your rate stats among second basemen. Strikeouts, he's 5th out of 6. Walks, he's 4th out of 6. So he does hit for power. Sandberg hits for a little bit of power. Biggio hits in the Snaggle Monday Masher. Interesting. I'll have to take a look at that one. And so Sandberg here at number 4. Number 3 is the most used guy here, Jose Altuve. Let's see. Solid numbers. So I like the ratings. I think they look pretty good. The gap towards righties, the power towards lefties, contact slightly towards lefties, avoid K is about the same, I is about the same. So I'm going to hit for a little bit more power, a little bit more home runs, but he'll hit some doubles versus righties, a little bit more batting average versus lefties, obviously. But a 293 batting average, he's grading out number 2 offensively and number 3 defensively is Jose Altuve. 293 average, 333 on base percentage, 2nd in all the rest of your rate stats. 407 slugging, 740 OPS, 326 weighted on base average, and 2nd in runs created per 600 at 76.71. Also gets that nifty proven winner designation as well, with 26% of his points, which I think is the 2nd highest percentage we've seen so far for Jose Altuve. A little bit of power, a little bit of base running. Solid looking card. versus lefties or righties. So he's a guy who can play every day. So when you start talking about, I know we talk about platoons a lot, but you can only platoon at so many positions. And so the fact that Altuve can play versus lefties and versus righties and is probably going to put up a pretty solid batting average versus both is useful for a guy like Jose Altuve, because I think that it's a little bit harder to coax a lot of offense out of a platoon at, say, second base. What does the 26% proven winner mean? Okay, so the proven winner stat, for those of you who haven't seen it before, it's relatively new. I think it's been about a month. So what I did was I took all of the different rounds that teams make it to, and I look at the teams for teams that make it to the second round, third round, semis, and I look at the players that are on the teams, and then it all goes into this list. And so for a tournament like this, a 32-team best-of-7 tournament format, they get points based off of how far they go. So for instance, where are we right now? So for instance, right now, Joe Mauer has the most appearances and the most points, obviously, but he makes it into the second, third, fourth round. And so what I look at is down here, we look at how many appearances they've made. And this is out of the top 100 players. So out of the top 100 appearance players, I don't know if I said that right, I look at who has the most percentage of their points. So like going out in the first round will obviously get them 0%. Second round will be 1 point out of 5 for the tournament. And then going on and on and on, they can get up to 5 points for any given tournament. And so I look at the top 100 most used players, and then the top 20 of those guys based off of points percentage get a proven winner designator. And so you see, who are we looking at right now? We're looking at it was Altuve, right? So he is right here. So he's number 20 with 26.64%. He's got 289 total points out of 1,000 points available in 217 total appearances for Altuve. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense, because I'm not sure it did to me. I'm not positive that made sense to me, but hopefully that made a little bit of sense to you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. I don't think it's predictive at all. And I've been pretty clear about that from the start. It was just, so it started as I was looking at the gold tournaments, and I had done like 17 tournaments at one point, and I was like, I want to see what players show up on the championship teams, right? On the teams that win championships. So I just looked at all the championship winning teams. I was like, oh, look, Nick Madrigal is on every single one of the championship winning teams. And then somebody was like, well, yeah, duh, Madrigal's on every team at this point. So, I mean, that's not necessarily predictive. I was like, okay, well, let's see who's getting the most points. And then I played around with it for a couple hours and came up with that, and I think it's a pretty cool stat, but I really don't think it's predictive at all, especially since it's very dependent on these guys being on teams that are put together well, because you can have a Altuve on a team that doesn't have anything around him, and he's obviously not going to do this well. Number 2 is Johnny Evers. Splits pretty heavy versus righties, so not as much use here in this format as he does down in gold, where it's more closer to 50-50. It is fun. He splits pretty heavy towards righties, so I think he's a little bit more useful down in, say, gold right now. I don't think he's going to get a ton of play here. He is number 1 defensively. 83 range, 86 double play, 62 error, 90 second base rating for Johnny Evers. He is number 1 defensively out of the guys on this list. 4th offensively, 3rd in average, 2nd in on base percentage. I actually kind of lean Altuve here just because of the fact that Altuve doesn't have the heavy splits. But, Evers isn't quite unplayable. I'll go into how do I export the data. I'll show you in just a minute. The data for the proven winner, because it's all out of the same thing. It all comes from one data dump, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. Let me get through the second baseman real quick. And so Evers not being as good versus lefties makes me think that maybe Madrigal is a better choice than him, just because, it is really, really heavy left-handed here. We know what we get with Evers and Madrigal at this point. 344 on-base percentage for Evers, 275 batting average, 6th in slugging, 5th in OPS, 4th in weighted on-base average. And let's just do it. Number 1 is Nick Madrigal, who's grading out number 1 offensively and number 2 defensively. So he's similar defensively to Altuve. probably slightly better defensively than Altuve. You've got 62 range, 65 errors, 73 second base rating, 77, 86, 68. Yeah, definitely slightly better than Altuve defensively. It's a smaller sample size of 2,600 plate appearances as opposed to Altuve's 8,300, but number one in every rate stat for Madrigal. 320 batting average, 355 on base, 320, 413 slugging, 769 OPS, 339 weighted on base average. Doesn't really run. He's not a big base runner, but he's gonna he's such a perfect number 2 hitter. Does split slightly towards lefties, but he plays versus righties as well. This is such a fantastic card. I played him in my perfect team for a while, and all the way up to Diamond. He played in Diamond. Man, this card is just, it's broken. It is so good. I just feel like it's broken. And I think it's the number 1 card in the format. I really do think it's the number 1 second base card in this format based off of what I'm seeing. I think Altuve is pretty close. I think that Altuve card comes really close to matching the Madrigal. And obviously the higher sample size. But I just think the fact that Madrigal's higher number here is a void Ks as opposed to the contact number. I know that we've got the 100 contact, 95 contact here, and Altuve gives you a little bit more power too, so keep that in mind as well. I don't think you're wrong to use Altuve. I just really like this Madrigal card. But I think that I think any one of these 3 cards, really it's between Altuve and Madrigal to me. I think that Evers' splits towards righties just kind of turned me off from him just a little bit, even though he's so good defensively. And I think Evers can be a perfectly capable backup second baseman in the format. But I think when you're talking about starters and when you're talking about the heavy side of a platoon, I think that Madrigal and Altuve are really the 2 go-tos right now based off of what I'm seeing. And if you're running a platoon, Madrigal has that nifty little ability to play shortstop as well. But if you're not looking for a platoon at second base, I think you can choose either one of them. I think that Altuve is very useful, and I think that Madrigal is good too. As far as exporting data, so what you do to export data, you come down here, you go to statistics, you go tournament statistics, and then you go over to sortable stats, and you create whatever you want. So you go into here and you hit in view, you go to customize, and you can put whatever you want in here. I do one data dump. I know there are some people out there who do pitchers and batters in a separate dump, but I prefer to do it all in one, just because it allows me to only download it one time. So it looks something like this for me, which is a mess. And it comes out, it goes all the way over to like DF across the top of my thing. It's like 118 columns or something like that. Make sure you set to all players if you're doing it like this. Sometimes it defaults itself back to all batters or all pitchers for some reason. And then make sure you don't have a split. If you do splits, you're going to get all zeros. You can't get split data in tournaments. I also filter out anybody who didn't get a plate appearance or a third of an inning pitched or a put out or a run allowed or something for my filter. And so that's where that comes from. And so you just go to report, you say write report to disk. It'll pop up here eventually, and then you just go Control A, which will select everything, copy, and then go into Excel, right click in Excel and paste with formatting. So you're gonna, when you go over to Excel here, I'll just go over to my data page real quick. We're not gonna actually put anything in here, but when you go to Excel, if you're doing it like that, if you're doing that Control A copy thing, make sure when you go to Excel, you right click and you hit match destination formatting up here for Excel, because otherwise it comes out all a mess. But for the most part, that's how you download data. And then you can, I use pivot tables. There's other ways to do it too. I think pivot tables are probably the most efficient way to do it at this point, in the way that it's super easy to come up with the stats. It's super easy to get like this going on. The biggest work for me is this part. So I'm adding some stuff. I'm adding some stats I'm going to be downloading. I'm going to stop downloading the defensive stuff with the next update to the spreadsheet, just because The ratings will still be there. Right now, I'm downloading all of the defensive data, and it's just a lot. It's a lot of data. Yeah, DRC has a great tutorial video on, I think it's pinned to the Discord over in the Out of the Park Discord is where DRC's video is pinned, and he'll go through and show you how to actually translate the raw data into something usable for you. So let's see. So Niquatic likes Madrigal. JDA says Altuve and Madrigal are tied. I think it really depends on what you're looking for. So if you need to get just a little bit more power out of your second base position, I think that there is certainly an argument. Wow, we've already been on here for an hour. We haven't even finished 3 positions. There is something to be said for the fact that he's got a little bit of power in the base running as well. 69, 72, 77, 255. Yeah, Altuve is just a little bit better base runner. A much better base runner, and gives you a little bit of power. I think if you're looking for a little bit more offense out of your second baseman, then you're probably looking for Altuve. But if you're looking for a guy who's going to be like your number 2 hitter, getting on base, and a little bit better defense, which second base is a position I value pretty highly defensively, then I think Madrigal's a go-to. Can someone in chat explain to you what this is about? No, we're doing stats. There's stats down here too. So this is all right here. These are the stats that I pull out of the tournaments. You're good. No, it's not a bother at all. So no, I pull all the tournament data for the stuff that I'm in. We do talk about ratings because they're important, but we talk a lot about the stats that I'm seeing in these tournaments as well. Jay Comey. So you thought you knew Excel, but DRC is on. Yeah, I agree. DRC is on another level than the rest of us. He is, he's something else. I think his real job has to do with Microsoft Excel. We had 10 qualifying third basemen. Live Matt Chapman comes in at number 10 with 622 plate appearances. He's 10th in every single rate category among third baseman, 4th in home runs, a little bit of power. Grades out number 2 defensively. Let's not use Matt Chapman. How about that? Number 9 is Minnie Minoso. These are perfect. These are just perfect team tournaments. So I'm talking, this is your low diamond 32 team open tournaments for everything. This is the low diamond tournament. Next week I'll be doing bronze. Next week. Let's see. Yeah, and there's a lot of people in there for packs too, which we're running. I think we're at the pack limit pretty soon. So this is why you become a teacher, so you can spend summers watching stuff like this. I've been thinking about becoming a teacher, but that's a decision down the road for me. Right now, I'm just a retired military guy who does this once a week at this point. I have my own channel too, where I do stuff for my online league and some other tournament stuff that's not quite as in depth as this, but I haven't been streaming on that much lately just because I've been super lazy. If they're good tourney players, and I agree with you too, Lowry. If they're good tourney players, they're probably going to be decent in perfect draft. It does. I don't think it translates 1-to-1 at all. Minoso. Let's see. Future legend Nolan Jones. I don't see him on here, so I don't think we're going to see him, but we'll take a look. Are you talking about for second base? Casey 9th? Let me know. I'll look him up if you're looking for Nolan Jones at second base. Manny Minoso comes in at number 9. He's used a lot in gold, and it's a super cheap card to get. I think that's why he's up here. He is grading out 4th offensively, grading out 9th defensively. Low diamond tourney update. You were swept, and Frank Howard was 1 for 10 with a walk. Interesting. Yeah, that's not fun, Tohan, at all. Yeah, you still have to build a team, so for sure. Let's see. Minoso, at number 9. 4th offensively, 9th defensively. So still not great defensively at third base. I actually prefer him as a left fielder if you're going to play him at all, but it looks like almost everything he's gotten here is as a third baseman, but I think he's probably just there because somebody couldn't afford some of the better cards. It's a super cheap, super easy card to get, but it's not terribly useful at this point. You just unlocked Alek Thomas. Congratulations. I unlocked him last week. He's fantastic. Furiously taking notes. You have most of these guys, but did not build a team with the top ones. Interesting. Number 8 is third baseman Tony Perez, grading out 10th defensively and 1st offensively. So You know, he's your pick your poison guy here. 43 range, 60 arm, 48 turn double play, 37 error, and a 35 third base rating. He is pretty bad defensively. Looks solid offensively versus righties. 104 contact, 76 gap, 104 power. 60 I and 68 avoid K is a little bit concerning. The combination, both of them being below 70, is a little bit concerning to me. But you know, you take what you can get. The splits versus righties are a little bit concerning as well, but I don't think he won't hit versus lefties. I think he'll have a solid batting average and hit for some power versus lefties, but he's really, really bad defensively from what I've seen. So, yeah, no problem, Curly. Maybe as a designated hitter, perhaps. 4th in average, 4th in on-base percentage, number 1 in slugging, 20 home runs per 600. I think he's only the 2nd or 3rd player we've seen so far today over 20. Number 1 in slugging, number 1 in OPS, number 1 in weighted on-base average, 3rd in runs created. Doesn't have too much base running skills. I think this could be an interesting designated hitter card for sure for Tony Perez, especially if you can platoon him versus righties somehow, but I think he'll hit okay versus lefties as well. Good looking offensive card. Some warts defensively for Tony Perez. I think he's probably getting played quite a bit as a designated hitter, and I think it's a good-looking designated hitter card. Unlocked through a mission. There's a future legend, Alec Thomas. Oh, let's see. You've been on the beta team for Out of the Park for a decade, but you did a lot of PR stuff, and so a lot of the perfect team stuff still goes over your head. Unlocked. Yeah, so there's the future legend here. I can show you. What it takes to unlock the future legend Alec Thomas. He is the Arizona future legend card, and so you need to get 2 out of 3 of Christian Robinson, Geraldo Perdomo, and Corbin Carroll. And these aren't the most expensive cards, although they probably have gone up since this card dropped. The future legend missions came out about 3 weeks ago, so if we look at like Carroll, I don't know what the last 10s on these cards are anymore. But they're probably a little bit more expensive now that a really, really solid gold card has dropped for them. Alec Thomas is a really, really good gold card. You want Corbin and Christian? Yeah, it's mission work. No, you can't improve them. You bought Christian for 5K today. Nice. That's not bad. That's a pretty solid price for Alec Thomas card. You have Thomas and Carroll, got both through the auction house. Is it this future legend Christian Thomas? That's how much was he on the auction house for you? Perez at number 8. Number 7, Red Smith, grading out 5th defensively, 9th offensively, 9th in every rate stat for Red Smith, largely because he doesn't walk and he strikes out a lot. 54 I, 52 avoid K versus lefties, 52 and 51 versus righties. Those numbers are pretty concerning to me from an offensive standpoint. I just don't think this card's going to perform very well offensively, and I don't think anybody else does either, even though he plays pretty okay defense. He comes in at number 7. Number 6 is interesting. I didn't know there was a Freddie Lindstrom card. Freddie Lindstrom comes in at number 6, grading out 6th defensively, 7th offensively. This isn't a terrible looking card versus lefties. 94 contact, 89 gap, 84 power. The eye's a little bit low, but a 107 avoid Ks. I'm a little surprised to see these numbers this low, to be honest. A 273 average, 308 on base percentage, 420 slugging, 727 OPS, 318 weighted on base average. 3rd in home runs, 12 home runs per 600 plate appearances. Carroll's last 10 is 4,300. Nice, thank you. Number 1 in strikeout avoidance for Freddie Lindstrom, but number 10 in walks. Just doesn't walk enough to really get that up there. Not a ton of speed. Defensively, he's middle of the pack at third base. 69 range, 77 arm, 72 third base running. Plays a whole bunch of different positions. Is only there because Frankie Frisch insisted on it. Nice. Blitz versus lefties? I gotta be honest. I think you can coax a little bit more out of this if you're platooning him versus lefties. I think that people see a whole lot of blue up here, and he might be getting played every day. But it's a pretty small sample size at this point. I'm curious. I'm curious about seeing more of this card going forward. It's interesting. Lindstrom at number 6. Number 5 is Harvey Keene, grading out 5th offensively and 8th defensively. Harvey Keene was one of our favorite bronze cards last season. And so now plays 5 different positions. 2 of them he plays almost okay. 68 range, 60 arm, 86 turn double play, 74 error, 56 third base rating. There is my last Twitch drop of the day. Grading out 5th offensively, number 1 in batting average at 289. On base percentage is 3rd. Slugging is 3rd. Runs created is 4th. WAR is 6th. 4th in weighted on base average. Doesn't really steal any bases. Just 1 stolen base or so per 600 plate appearances. If you're smart with him, though, he won't get caught very much. So let him pick his stolen base points. Only 1,400 plate appearances as a third baseman. It looks like he's probably largely getting listed as a shortstop, where I don't think he's going to match up as favorably defensively. Not that he matches up favorably defensively here. This is an all-offense card, and will hit better versus righties. It's pretty big splits versus righties in contact, in gap, and in avoid Ks especially. 18 points of avoid Ks. The eye and the power both lean towards versus lefties here as well. It's an interesting card. Interesting. 289 batting average right now. That's pretty solid. I don't think you'd necessarily need to platoon him. It's kind of up to you what you're going for. If you want a little bit more power, you can play him every day versus lefties. So there you go. Perdoma's last 10 was 45, so not bad. It's a pretty cheap card to get, that Alek Thomas at this point. Ron Santo comes in at number 4. Grading out 3rd offensively and 7th defensively. Lower batting average for Ron Santo. 344 on base percentage is pretty high. Doesn't really run, so it's kind of empty. Defensively, he's 7th with a 72 range, 90 arm, 66 error, and a third base rating of 77. I don't think it's unplayable at third base, but there's guys on the list who are a little bit better. 3rd offensively, let's see. So 15 home runs, 6th in slugging, 3rd in OPS, and 2nd in weighted on base average. 5th in runs created per 600 at 80.97. Splits, I would say towards versus lefties, the contact is exactly the same. You got 8 points of gap versus righties, 3 points of power versus lefties, 7 points of eye, and 7 points of avoid Ks versus lefties as well. So a higher batting average, you'll have a little bit more doubles versus righties, but I still think overall the slugging, the OPS is going to be a little bit higher versus lefties. So maybe a strong side of a platoon, but another one of those guys that if you had to platoon him, he'd lose some value because he only plays third base, but I think these are ratings that can probably play just about every day for you, and then have somebody else as a backup third baseman / utility guy as well. So I think this could be a useful card. Ron Santo at number 4. Number 3 is future legend Ke'Bryan Hayes, 2021 Pittsburgh Pirates future legend. Grading out 3rd defensively, grading out 6th offensively right now. 262 average, 327 on base percentage, 410 slugging, 738 OPS, and 326 weighted on base average for Ke'Bryan Hayes. Doesn't hit for a ton of power, doesn't run a ton of bases, 7th in runs created, so you're getting solid, really solid defense out of him at third base. He is your most used card with middle of the pack offense. So it's not one of those all defense, no offense kind of cards. You're getting pretty solid defense out of him at third base and some semblance of offense. Let's see. Split slightly towards lefties, but not so much that I think he needs to be platooned. I think he can play every day. And I think these are, I know we're looking at 7th out of 10. We're looking at 6th out of 10. So it's middle of the pack. It's just, they're not bad. None of these cards outside of Chapman so far have been bad offensive cards, I don't think. It's a pretty solid third base set here in Low Diamond. Whereas we look at the second baseman, like as we're going through the second baseman, and everybody was either he can play defense but doesn't hit, or he's can hit but doesn't play defense, or it's Nick Madrigal. So at third base, I think there's a lot of really solid options here for third baseman in Low Diamond for what I'm seeing so far. Number 2 is Ray Dandridge, who's number 1 defensively but 8th offensively. And even Dandridge gets a lot of his usefulness from the fact that he can play all 3 infield positions that aren't first base, and play them relatively well. He's a very good defensive card at all 3 of those positions. I know it's only a 63 shortstop rating, but we can live with it for our backup if we're looking to not platoon. But he is not a great offensive card. He does steal some bases, not a ton. Solid stolen base percentage at 86.36 for a guy who's stealing 10 bases per 600 plate appearances, which is pretty good. He plays well at second base. I agree. I think he's a good second baseman. I think he's a second-tier defensive shortstop. I certainly wouldn't start him at shortstop, but I think he could start at second base if you wanted him to. His offense doesn't match up great with these third basemen. But I think it could match up a little bit better with the second baseman. Doesn't really have a huge split, 1 point in basically everything except avoid Ks and contact where it's 2 points. So I think he's a really, really solid utility guy. I think from a third baseman, I want a little bit more offense out of my starting third baseman than you're getting out of Dandridge. And so, whether that's Hayes, whether that's somebody else, I'm not really sure at this point. We'll see who number 1 is. It looks like it's going to be... Bill Spears is going to be number 1. Bill Spears comes in at number 1. Really heavy splits versus righties here. So I'm going to say right now, I don't like this card at number 1, just based off looking at those ratings. He's grading out second offensively. He's grading out fourth defensively somehow. The error rating's a little bit concerning. The 87 third base rating is good. The 88 range, 99 arm, he's getting a little bit of a bonus there. Nobody else comes really close in either of those categories besides Dandridge. And Spears' arm is a little bit better than Dandridge, but Dandridge is better defensively. Could he be a utility guy? For sure. First base, third base, I'd probably stay away from him at shortstop just because the turn double play and error combination is pretty bad. So maybe as a first base, third base utility guy. And as the small side of a platoon, he loses some of his value there too. He's got really, really heavy splits versus righties. Maybe a solid bench bat, I could see him being a solid bench bat. Third in batting average at 282, 344 on base percentage, 421 slugging and OPS. He's a guy who can mash on those bullpens. The bullpens again are almost 80% right-handed. So I agree. I don't love him at number 1. Runs created is a large part of that. 87.9 runs created is number 1 at the position, which is pretty good. Combined with pretty okay defense. I would say okay defense, not great. At third base, I don't think he's definitely not in that top tier. But I think as a starting third baseman, I'm probably leaning one of Ke'Bryan Hayes or Ron Santo as my starter. And then some combination of Dandridge or... I think this could be a good utility guard and a good late innings card off the bench, a pinch hitter or whatever. This might be the first time Bill Spears has been rated number 1 in anything. You're probably not wrong. Random number generator loves him maybe. Yeah, so it's a pretty small sample size on him too, so keep that in mind. It's only 857 plate appearances for Bill Spears, and I don't love the card. Like I said, I would not start this card at third base, but I really think it could be an interesting bench bat kind of utility guy at third base or first base for you as well. So there you go. I'm gonna try to track down a Ke'Bryan Hayes. I want this card. I don't have it yet, I don't think. But I'm gonna try to track it down. Also a proven winner. Those are your third basemen. You bet he was number 1 in singles? Maybe. You think versus righties is big. Yeah, especially as a bench player. I think the versus righties is pretty big too. What about Maury Wills? Let's see if we can find him. Oh, look at that. I clicked on him. He was right there. We're going to see Maury Wills at shortstop, I think. We haven't done shortstops yet, so we'll see where he shows up. Let's do the shortstops. Then we're going to take a quick break so I can refresh my coffee because it's cold. What's left of it is cold anyway. 9 qualifying shortstops. Number 1 is the guy my AI set at shortstop for me, Carlos Correa, probably because I don't have any of the other cards on the list. When I look at them, I say, I don't think I have any of those. In fact, I'm pretty sure I don't. Carlos Correa comes in at number 9, 7th defensively, 8th offensively. I would just stay away from him. Does split a little bit towards lefties, which is good. But otherwise, I don't think he's terribly useful. Low average, low on base percentage. Doesn't run the bases and is mediocre defensively and only plays shortstop. I'd probably stay away from him if I could, if I were you. Number 8 is live Francisco Lindor. He's grading out 5th defensively, so at least he's useful defensively, which is more than we can say about Lindor. Offensively, he's the worst. out of this list. Ninth in every rate stat, 203 average, 259 on base percentage, 302 slugging, 561 OPS, and a 252 weighted on base average. He's here because my AI put him in as my shortstop because my team is AI built right now. And so no bids. 12 for Hayes, buy it now. Huh. I might. That's interesting. Number 7 is Harvey Keene, comes in at number 7 here. He's grading out 3rd offensively at shortstops, 9th defensively. We saw him at 3rd base. I prefer him as a 3rd baseman. Pretty heavy splits versus righties, so maybe as a utility guy / 3rd base platoon makes Keene useful. I think it's a useful looking card. Offensively, he's 3rd among all of these shortstops. 289 average is number 1, 2nd in all the other rate stats. Just doesn't run at all, which lowers his value just a little bit, but is 2nd in runs created among shortstops. So good hitting shortstop. I don't like him as a starter, but I think as a backup shortstop, I think he could be perfectly okay as a offensively useful backup shortstop. You use him as a utility guy, nice bat off the bench. I agree, especially with those righty splits off the bench. I think that Harvey Keene can be a pretty solid bench / utility option. Number 6 is Build-A-Legend, Jimmy Rollins. Solid splits versus lefties. Good base running ability, grading out number 1 offensively. He is 8th out of 9 defensively, so the only guy who matches up defensively with him right now is Correa. 71 range is a little bit low. The arm's a little bit, I mean, he's mediocre defensively. I don't think anybody's throwing bad defensive shortstops out there. I wouldn't even go so far as to call Correa, well, I would call Correa bad, but the rest of these guys are pretty good. And whoops, went too far. Jimmy Rollins is mediocre at shortstop. Not going to help your pitching staff, but I don't think he'll kill them either. The speed and base running ability is pretty good. Again, the heavy splits versus lefties are good for the format right now as a starter. Don't love him off the bench. And he only plays shortstop too. So because he's got big splits and only plays shortstop, I think that limits his value just a little bit as well. But offensively, he's grading out number 1. 279 average, 316 on base percentage, 432 slugging. 3rd in OPS and weighted on base average and WAR. Number 1 in runs created per 600 at 84.66 among shortstops. And a very good base runner among shortstops as well. 36 steals, net steals per 600. So it's probably closer to 40 something. This is something that's getting fixed when I redo the thing too. I'm getting rid of net steals. I don't love the net steals with the stolen base percentage. It was fine when it was on its own, but when I added stolen base percentage, it became dumb and doesn't make sense. It should just be straight stolen bases at this point. And so that's what I'm working on this week. Yeah, the defense isn't great. You're talking about for Keene. Yeah, Keene is a solid hitter. Defense isn't great anywhere. Utility guys, okay. Morning, Chaston Ruin. Thanks for stopping by. And so there's Jimmy Rollins. Number 5 is Bones Eli, peak St. Louis legend. Splits a little bit towards lefties, not a lot. They're not big splits. Offensively, he's grading out 7th. Defensively, he's grading out 2nd. So this is an all defense, not a ton of offense card. He's not last offensively, but that's just because the 2 guys behind him are live cards that don't perform at this level. They just don't. Live cards at high gold and low diamond just don't perform. And higher than diamond, they don't perform very well either. Rarely. 90 range, 81 arm, 106 turn double plays, 77 error with a 94 shortstop rating, and has a left field rating as well. So that makes him a little bit interesting. Slight splits versus lefties. I don't think you're going to get a ton of offense out of this card, but a 276 on base percentage is pretty low. 379 slugging percentage, 65 OPS, 289 weighted on base average, and a 227 average. None of those numbers are great. If you have Bones Eli in your lineup, it's probably because he plays pretty good defense. I'm not in love with this card. Maybe as a backup shortstop because of the fact that he can play some left field, but man, this bat is not going to match up against those left field bats, I don't think. Number 4 is Woody English, who's grading out 6th defensively and 2nd offensively right now. Small sample size on both of these guys, really. It was 881 plate appearances for Eli and 641 for Woody English. Again, 6th defensively for English. The range is a little bit low. The arm is a little bit low. Again, kind of in that mediocre Defensive ratings with Jimmy Rollins right there, around the same as Jimmy Rollins. Does play third base, so that's interesting. Splits versus lefties as well. He's grading out second offensively with an 81 contact, 93 avoid Ks ratings, and a 90 I rating versus lefties. This is going to be a pretty solid on-base percentage in the format, I think. This is an interesting looking card. I like this card a little bit more than I like the Bones Eli card. I know the defense is a notch below that. It's definitely a second tier defensive shortstop at the level, but versus lefties, I kind of like this card versus lefties. 348 on base percentage. I wish he ran a little bit better. So you're not going to get a ton of base running out of him, but you'll get a little bit of power. Solid on base percentage and a solid average out of him with a good OPS and a decent weighted on base average. I don't think this is a terrible card. I'm going to quietly plug him in here and see what the rest of the list looks like. Number 3 is Luis Aparicio, who's grading out at number 3. This is his peak Chicago White Sox legend card. 5th in offense, 3rd in defense, puts him 3rd overall. Pretty heavy splits versus lefties, which is good. 268 average, 326 on base percentage, 389 slugging, 715 OPS, and 316 weighted on base average. He's in the top half in all of those. Runs a little bit. 12 net steals per 600, 65% stolen base percentage is a little bit low, but you haven't seen Louis at all outside of tournaments. I haven't seen him much outside of tournaments either, and so this is it's only 1,700 plate appearances. It looks like people are leaning Maury Wills and Mark Belanger at this point at the shortstop position, and so they're going to be number 2 and number 1. We haven't seen either of them yet, so we'll be able to grade them out here in a second. I don't think this card looks awful. The range is borderline good. The arm is good. The turn double play and error ratings are pretty high with a 90 shortstop rating. He's a pretty clear number 3, though. I think Wills and Belanger are both going to be pretty solid shortstop cards as we go up the list. I have not seen them yet. So again, this is a surprise to me just as much as it is to you. But I think this card looks perfectly usable if it's all you have. If you can platoon him, great. The problem is he only plays shortstop, so he's not going to play any backup positions on his day off. Will he hit versus righties? Sure. I think he'll get on base versus righties and be okay for you. The on base percentage is going to be pretty low, but I think he'll still have an okay batting average. I think that this is probably because he's getting used every day. I actually think that this average will be higher versus lefties. So if you somehow can fit a platoon of a guy who can only play shortstop in your lineup, I think he will hit pretty well against lefties. At number 3, Luis Aparicio. Number 2, there's Maury Wills. Proven winner alert. Maury Wills grades out 4th defensively, but 93 range, 92 shortstop rating, 85 arm, 88 double play. The error rating is dragging him down below Aparicio. So Aparicio is getting a ton of bonus on his double play and his error. But Wills has better range, so keep that in mind, and a better shortstop rating as well. Splits versus, power splits versus lefties. Not that a 27 power is anything to write, but you got 18 points of gap versus lefties. The eye doesn't change. You got 8 points of contact and 18 points of avoid K versus righties, which is a little bit sad to me. I don't think that he's going to be unusable versus lefties, but I mean, versus righties, he looks a little bit better. Overall, he's grading out 4th offensively among shortstops. Again, that 4th defensively. Does have that third base. So, can you play him as a versus righties shortstop and a utility guy on his days off? Perhaps. I think you can do that. He'll hit versus lefties too. I think that he's going to be okay versus lefties. 279 average, 323 on base percentage, 377 slugging, 701 OPS, and 310 weighted on base average. I think he could be a decent defensive third baseman too, for sure. Maury Wills, I know it's a 43rd base rating, but man, that range, that arm, and that error rating at third base are all pretty good. And so, how does he match up offensively among the third basemen? Probably right in the middle of the pack with them. I think he'd be pretty high on the third base defense list. Right in the middle of the pack, probably offensively, if I had to guess. Not a lot of power here. Good base running. I mean, 31 net steals per 600 with a 74% stolen base percentage is pretty good. You're talking about a pretty good base runner. He is a proven winner at 28% of his points as well. So Maury Wills comes in at number 2. Mark Belanger is your number 1 defensive shortstop. It's not particularly close. Where's number 2? Number 2 is Bones Eli, 34 points of defensive value. Number 4 is 1 point behind him. Mark Belanger is at 39 points of defensive value. It's not really close, guys. Mark Belanger is the best defensive shortstop in the format. And the fact that he splits towards lefties right now, with these kind of pitching splits going on in the format, is useful. I would probably rate him number 1 right now. If it comes down closer, I mean, I think he stays number 1 regardless. Decent base running, not great. Decent base stealing, not great. 263 average, 316 on base percentage, 352 slugging, 6 in OPS, 6 in weighted on base average. He is only grading out 6 defensively, but it's shortstop. I consider defense to be a little bit more important at shortstop myself, but to each his own. Belanger is still not a great offensive option at shortstop. So I could absolutely see Belanger being your starting shortstop every day and then using Maury Wills as your right-handed side of a platoon and using Maury Wills as a backup third baseman. I think that is a perfectly acceptable way to go about this. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Because even versus righties, Wills isn't going to play all that often. So there you go. Belanger's good. I think he's a really solid defensive shortstop, and it's not like that the Iron Belanger from last year that was really good at defense and couldn't even hit in Iron. I think this is a perfectly usable offensive card versus left-handing pitching in the format, which is good. We have Chico Carrasco in my data. Let's find him. 235 plate appearances, 260 average, 294 on base percentage, 422 slugging, 715 OPS. So those are solid numbers for a guy who plays some defense. Mid-teens home runs. Not a lot of walks, not a lot of strikeouts either for Chico Carrasco. Marty Marion is also pretty good defensively. Let's check him out. Marty Marion had 571 plate appearances, just missed the cutoff. 250 average, 292 on base percentage. The average is okay, on base percentage a little bit low. 388 slugging. Doesn't walk much. Doesn't strike out at all. Let's see if we can find that card and get our eyes on it. Here's our last drop. Marty Marion. Yeah, that's a pretty solid looking offensive shortstop. Ratings, splits towards lefties. I don't think that's an unusable card. He's a peak shortstop, and so there you go. Might be cheaper than the Belanger. Oh, thank you. Oh, thought you were bringing me a drink. Working on. Oh, okay. Sweet. I think this card's perfectly usable if he's all you have. And let's see. Let's compare him to... Where'd Belanger go? Where are we? 97 range, 89 arm. I think Belanger's turn double play and error rating set him apart. Yeah, it's really the error rating sets him apart and the shortstop rating. So Belanger is obviously slightly better defensively, but Marion might hit a little bit better versus lefties. The 66 here is a little bit concerning to me. It's a pretty low contact rating for being in Diamond, especially with the eye being as low as it is. But with a 103 avoid Ks, I think he'll be okay. He's also part of the Pete Rose mission. Oh, I wonder if I have him. I did finish the Pete Rose mission. I don't know if I don't think I have that card though. Let's see, positions, shortstops. Yeah, I don't have him, unfortunately. I do have the Harvey Keene, which is nice. The really bad Ron Hansen card. There's the live Wander Franco as well. So there you go, guys. Those are your shortstops. Is there anybody else you want? Let's see. Belanger, Chico. We talked about Chico. We talked about Marion. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh my coffee. We'll come back and finish the outfielders and the pitchers. So thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, we're back. Who was top first baseman? I don't remember. That was a long time ago. I think we went with some combination of Kruk and Derek Lee, Wally Joyner, and number one was Euclid. Euclid was at number one. Second base, yeah, somebody already covered the second base. So let's move on to the outfielders, where we had 11 qualifying left fielders. So let's just start with number 11, because that's Charlie Keller, who will hit home runs against right-handed pitching, and that's about it. I would argue that Charlie Keller, as a guy who only plays left field and has really heavy splits, really heavy splits versus righties, is nearly unusable in this format as currently constructed. If the format ever strays closer to 50-50 or errs towards right field or right-handed pitching, I don't know what that was, then Keller might be usable. But right now, I would say Charlie Keller is not usable in this format. Because he's only going to play once every 5 days as a starter, and he only plays left field. So I don't love the card right now. Number 10 is Rico Carty from the 1969 Atlanta Braves. This is a special edition card. He's grading out number 2 offensively and grading out bad defensively. Numero bad, Male. 38 outfield range, 14 outfield arm, 37 outfield error, and a 29 left field rating. Yowza. Offensively, I mean, he looks pretty good. Doesn't have huge splits. Splits a little bit towards lefties. We got 5 points of contact, 2 points of gap, 12 points of eye, and 8 points of avoid K. His power is exactly the same. I think he hits versus lefties and righties. This is an interesting option as a designated hitter to me. He has to bounce the throw to the cutoff man. I think the cutoff man might have to come play the ball for him. Maybe a good designated hitter, though. 455 slugging, 789 OPS, 345 weighted on base average. All of those numbers are pretty solid. And a 291 batting average for Rico Carty. This is a good-looking offensive card. Middle of the order bat, maybe a number 5 hitter, maybe a number 4 hitter. 17 home runs per 600 plate appearances, has him third among left fielders, and he's second in runs created per 600. I think this is an interesting looking option as a designated hitter. And in fact, I'm going to throw him in there for now. This is a fun looking offensive card. Number 9 is Carlos Gonzalez. Grading out bad offensively. Special edition. from 2013. Grading out not a whole lot better defensively at left field, but is listed as a right fielder. So 917 plate appearances as a left fielder. Looks like he's getting used more as a right fielder. Perhaps we'll see how he matches up over there. He plays versus righties, so pretty heavy splits versus righties. You're talking almost 20 points of power, 17 points of gap, 13 points of contact, 13 points of I, and 6 points of avoid K. Can run just a little bit, but his rate stats do not look good. 299 on base percentage is bad. A sub 300 on base percentage from a left fielder is just awful. 384 slugging, 683 OPS, and a 302 weighted on base average for Carlos Gonzalez are not good numbers for a left fielder. Maybe for like a second baseman, but he doesn't play second base, obviously. You think he's the GOAT? Mid-teens and home runs, so he'll hit for a little bit of power, but again, he does play versus righties. The nice thing is he has multiple positions. I would not play him as a center fielder, but you know, he could be playable as a left fielder. We'll see how he grades against the right fielders, though. So maybe as the right-hand side of a platoon, you could get something out of him, but overall, mediocre numbers for Carlos Gonzalez right now. Number 8 is Yordan Alvarez, another guy who splits versus righties everywhere except for in gap power and avoid Ks, where he splits slightly versus lefties, 9 points of gap and 5 points of avoid Ks versus left-handed pitching. He plays bad defense in left field, not good, not quite as bad as Rico Cardi was, but still pretty bad. Offensively, he's grading out 4th. This is your special edition 2019 Yordan Alvarez. 5th in batting average, 2nd in on-base percentage, 4th in slugging OPS and weighted on-base average and home runs. Strikes out a lot, walks quite a bit as well. 3rd in runs created per 600 among left fielders. Splits versus righties, you have Gonzalez. You're talking about Cargo as a right fielder. Alvarez only plays left field, and with the splits versus righties, it's a little bit concerning to me in the format. But I think he can hit versus righties if you can find a way to fit him into your lineup. Number 7 is Hoot Evers. 15 points of avoid Ks and 3 points of contact versus lefties. 17 points of gap and 8 points of power. 9 points of power versus righties for Hoot Evers. So he is the 11th most used. Defensively, he's number 4. Offensively, he's number bad right now. 243 average, 288 on-base percentage, 367 slugging, 655 OPS, and a 289 weighted on-base average are all bad numbers. Doesn't hit for a lot of power. He's 8th with just over 10 home runs per 600. Doesn't really run. There's not a lot that this card is doing well in the low diamond format right now, so I would probably just stay away from it, because he is not a top-tier defensive left fielder. Number 6 is Don Baylor. 7th offensively somehow, and 7th defensively too. Plays some first base, left field, right field, so interesting stuff going on there. Splits pretty heavy towards versus lefties. You've got 12 points of contact, 7 points of gap, 5 points of power, 14 points of I, and 19 points of avoid K. So he does probably need to be platooned. I'm a little surprised to see the numbers as low as they are. I don't think he's getting platooned, guys. I just think that he can get a little bit more out of this if you're platooning him. Is it enough to be useful? Maybe not. I don't know. But these numbers, 256 average, 307 on base percentage, 443 slugging, and a 750 OPS. All look like numbers I would expect to see out of this card if he was playing every day versus lefties and righties. I think you can coax just a little bit more out of this if you platoon him versus lefties. I don't know that you're going to get a ton, but I think it's going to be better than what we're seeing here. He is a fly ball hitter, so keep that in mind. That's gonna suppress his batting average on balls in play just a little bit. Especially here at this level where we're starting to see some decent defensive outfielders. Baylor comes in at number 6. Number 5 is the most used card, Build a Legend, Tim Raines, grading out 5th offensively and 5th defensively, 5th overall, 4th in average, 6th in on-base percentage. Is he in any missions? Who's that? Baylor? I think he's a tournament reward. Let me see. Yeah, he's a tournament reward, diamond level tournament reward, for Don Baylor, and so that's where you're gonna find him. Uh, it's a decent enough looking card, I think. Number 5 is Tim Raines. Splits in avoid Ks in contact versus righties. Splits in gap versus lefties. Power is 2 points towards righties, and I is 5 points towards righties. Raines, I would argue, is going to be better versus righties and versus lefties, and only plays left field. He does run pretty well. He's grading out 5th offensively, 5th defensively. I'm a little bit surprised to see him so high up on the being used list, because I think there might be better options out there. We'll see. We'll see as we go forward. I think he can play every day in left field. The splits aren't big enough to really concern me versus lefties as opposed to versus righties, but I do think he'll play a little bit better versus righties. Very good base runner, number 1 in net steals per 600 while being 3rd in stolen base percentage. Doesn't strike out much. Middle of the pack among left fielders in walks. Everything else over here is kind of middle of the pack as well. 401 slugging, 729 OPS, 323 weighted on base average. And all of those numbers are good, not great, and his defense is good, not great. I think he is probably pretty easy to build at this point. It's probably not super cheap still, but you can probably at least find the stuff to build him at this point. So it might just be that he's easier to build, but we'll see. Whoops. Go back to your home. Undo. There we go. I did not mean to do that. That was hilarious. But he comes in at number 5. Number 4 is Pat Burrell. Holy blue numbers here. Franchise heroes, Pat Burrell. Heavy splits versus lefties here. We've got, well, actually, contact splits 1 point versus righties, but you got 4 points of gap, 5 points of power, 24 points of I, and 3 points of avoid K versus lefties. He's going to have a good on-base percentage in the format while playing every day. This is a card that I think could play every day. The average batting average will be a little bit low, I think, and you can see that 262. You can buy Raines right now for 41K. Interesting. You think Raines is a good DH, but terrible left fielder. What was Cardi's eval in a nutshell? Yeah, Cardi looks like a great DH, but a terrible left fielder. Like a really, really bad, like, cause your pitching staff to have coronaries on the mound kind of left fielder. I think obviously Burrell is going to play a little bit better versus lefties and have a better on-base percentage versus lefties for sure. A little bit better slugging versus lefties, but I don't think it's unplayable versus righties, so it could play every day, which is helpful because he's not a great defensive left fielder, but he only plays left field as well, which means he really kind of has to play every day if he's going to be useful. 6th in average, number 1 in on-base percentage, 5th in slugging, 3rd in OPS, number 1 in weighted on-base average, though, at 346, number 1 in walks, number 4 in runs created among left fielders, while being a middle-of-the-pack defensive left fielder at number 4. Interesting-looking card. There's a lot of interesting cards here. Franchise heroes, Alex Gordon, 2015 Kansas City Royals, comes in at number 3. This is your best defensive left field card. I'm not sure it's particularly close because holy smokes, those defensive numbers are good. Offensively, not as good. 254 average, 313 on base percentage, 8th in slugging, OPS, and weighted on base average. Splits towards righties, which is bad. Does play some third base. And I don't think he'd be the worst third baseman on the list. Might be close, but I think it's maybe playable as, you know, maybe as a right versus righties platoon, backup left field third baseman on his days off, perhaps. Maybe. But he is really here at number 3 just because he's so much better defensively than the rest of the left fielders. I really think that it's a position you want to get a little bit more offense out of. And so it's not as interesting as some of the other cards on the list to me. But if you're going all pitching and defense, then Alex Gordon might be your guy. Just don't expect him to help you out too much offensively. I mean, 72 runs created per 600 is not 0. So he's got that going for him. You like Reigns and Baylor only so far. Number 2 is future legend Alek Thomas. Proven winner, future legend Alek Thomas. This is a really good card in the gold format. This is a pretty solid defensive card at multiple outfield positions. I really like this card in this format as a utility outfielder. Left field, center field, right field, it doesn't really matter. He is grading out 6th offensively right now among left fielders. Doesn't hit for a ton of power, but he gets on base. Solid runs created at 77.78. On base percentage at 333, slugging 399, 732 OPS. Number 1 in WAR, but keep in mind that he plays some center field and some right field as well, so he might be gaining WAR from that as well. Matching up 6th offensively, let's see. I mean, he's a decent, okay base runner. Splits a little bit versus righties. Basically, all the way down is just a couple points. It's 4 points of contact and gap, 2 points of power, 4 points of I, and 3 points of avoid K. So while it's not significant, it will definitely play better versus righties. I like him as a kind of a versus righty side of a left field platoon, and then a utility outfielder on the days when lefties are pitching, which is going to be 4 out of every 5 games. So Alek Thomas comes in at number 2. Up here, again, largely because of his defense at a position that we really like to get some offense out of. So keep that in mind. He is definitely more of a defense guy, but he's going to give you a little bit more offense than that Alex Gordon card is going to give you too. So just some things to think about. And plays multiple outfield positions. Love this card as a utility outfielder. Number 1 is Carl Crawford. Duke. Pretty heavy versus righty splits here. Not gonna lie, he's grading out number 1 offensively. We'll talk about that in a minute. Only plays left field and has heavy right-handed splits, which means to me, this card isn't terribly usable. If you can somehow fit a versus right-handed only left fielder who only plays left field in your lineup, then maybe he becomes usable. But that is a pretty niche category to try to fit. We'll check out Chuck Turner in a minute. I think he'll hit. He's going to have a pretty solid batting average versus righties. Pretty solid slugging percentage versus righties as well. 288 batting average, 336 on base percentage, 446 slugging and OPS. I don't think he's the number 1 offensive card. I think a lot of this is him getting hidden versus righties. And small. I mean, it's not a super small sample size at 22. At 2,200 plate appearances. Don't ask him to try to save your season with a sliding catch in left field because he just won't do it. That one hurt a little bit. I'm not bitter. It's only been 10 years. I'll get over it eventually. 446. I mean, he looks okay offensively versus righties. I don't think these numbers stay that way versus lefties. Yeah, Alek Thomas is an OP utility outfield. I agree. I think Alek Thomas looks great as a utility outfield. Alek Thomas equals Gold League Series hero. He's killing it in gold for me. For that Alek Thomas card. But I mean, very niche usefulness here for Carl Crawford. But if you can fit him, I think that as a left fielder versus right-handed pitching, if you can fit it, I think he can be useful in that way. I think his numbers versus lefties are going to be kind of ugly. I'm not going to lie, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Very good base runner. Really, really pretty good base runner. I think you can even probably get a little bit more out of it, although 67% stolen base percentage is a little bit low. Usable. I think it's usable in the right format. We're looking for Chuck Turner. We might see him in right field. We're going to see him somewhere else. I think we're going to see him on another list somewhere. So we'll hold off on him. Let's move to the center fielders. It's okay. I mean, we've won 2 more World Series since that 2011 team. So, I mean, we've got that going for us. Interesting looking list here. We only had 7 qualifying center fielders. Roy Thomas was number 7, 5th defensively and 7th offensively. It just doesn't look good for Roy Thomas. -1 WAR per 600 over 728 plate appearances. Is he playing on my team? He's not. I tried. Versus righty splits, only plays center field, doesn't do it particularly well. I'd just stay away from him in the format. I don't say that about many cards. I just don't see this Roy Thomas card being terribly useful in the way that Low Diamond is currently being run by other players. Grady Sizemore, special edition from the Indians, comes in at number 6. Another guy who played for the Red Sox for a little bit, past his peak. Another guy who splits versus righties. The difference here is that he plays a little bit of left field and a little bit of right field as well. The other difference is that he's really bad defensively in center field. Just a 70 range with a 57 center field rating is, not that much worse than Roy Thomas, actually. 112 error rating is okay. Splits, pretty heavy splits versus righties. You're looking at 11 points of contact, 21 points of gap, 13 points of power, 12 points of I, and 4 points of avoid K. Again, another guy, at least he plays some utility, but I really think that, you're going to get that out of a guy like Alec Thomas anyway. It's nice. Thanks, Ricky. Much appreciated. Again, very niche, very, he plays the multiple positions, but doesn't do any of them particularly well. Offensively, he's grading out 5th among center fielders. Really low batting average, really low on base percentage. Doesn't run a ton. 5th out of 7 at a position where offense isn't very good to begin with is not great. So this is another card I would probably stay away from. We're running out of center field options here, guys. Already. Pete Hill comes in at number 5. I like Pete Hill. He's a good defensive center fielder. Splits versus righties, which makes me really sad, but plays left field and right field too. I think this is an interesting card as the versus right-hand side of a platoon in center field, and then playing your backup left field, right fielder on his days off. 244 average. He's grading out 6th offensively, but again, because he's going to be the right-hand side of a platoon and because he struggles so much versus lefties, these numbers are going to get dragged down a bit because he's going to have to play versus lefties every now and then, just because of the format the way it is. He's not going to be able to be a straight platoon for you in center field. And so that's why you're seeing some low numbers here. Versus righties, he's a little bit better than this. So just keep that in mind. Pretty low plate appearances for Pete Hill at this point. But I think it's a usable card if you use it right in the format too. You run Hill versus righties, I agree. For Pete Hill. Number 4 is Lenny Dykstra, another guy who splits versus righties. Maybe we're starting to see why everybody runs left-handed pitching. It might not be that the left-handed pitchers are good. It might just be that there's nobody who hits versus lefties in the outfield in the format. Dykstra is a very good base runner. I'm surprised to see his net steals this low, but with a 60% stolen base percentage, you're probably going to want to knock him down a notch or two. It is only an 89 steal for Lenny Dykstra, so not quite elite. And if you're running him full bore on that stolen base slider, I could definitely see that stolen base percentage being an issue for you. 3rd in strikeouts, 5th in walks, number 4 in average, 4th in on-base percentage, 4th in basically every category down here, and 4th defensively. Only plays center field and hits better versus righties. So again, if you can fit him as a very niche player in center field, then maybe you can make him work. But I really think that he has very limited usefulness in the format right now. There is only one option in center field, to be honest, says Axel. We'll see if that matches up. Number 3 is future legend Jason Dominguez. Pretty low avoid Ks. The eye is okay. Contact gap power look pretty good versus lefties. They look okay versus righties. Grading out number 1 offensively, but 7th defensively, and only plays center field. Doesn't run that great. 5th in steals, 5th in stolen base percentage as well. Does mash. He hits some home runs. This is, I kind of agree. This is a good-looking designated hitter card. 445 slugging, 771 OPS, 264 average, 327 on-base percentage. I think strikeouts could be an issue for him, for sure, but he's going to get on base, and when he puts the ball in play, he's going to provide pretty solid offense to you. Need that steal meter down for sure. I think he can be an effective base stealer if you use him right. Don't pump him up. He's going to have to be pretty low. You know, with 6 net steals per 600 and a 61% stolen base percentage, you're probably going to want to bump it down maybe 2 or 3 ticks even below normal for Dominguez. Solid bat, mediocre base runner, mediocre defense in center field, but a pretty good bat. Garrett Mitchell comes in at number 2, but I like this card as a starting center fielder. Obviously going to be a little bit better versus righties, I think, than versus lefties, but it's not a huge split. He's grading out 3rd defensively and 2nd offensively among left fielders. 272 average, first in on-base percentage at 336. 408 slugging, 743 OPS, and 329 weighted on base average are all number 2. Number 1 in WAR, number 2 in runs created, number 2 in walks, and number 1 in strikeout avoidance. Number 1 in stolen base percentage for Garrett Mitchell. People are being pretty smart with him, it looks like. And 3rd in home runs. The next Greg Jeffries. Speed is better. Yeah, that you got to watch out for that speed higher than steals. So this is a similar card. 80 speed, 68 steals. So you're going to want to be careful with it. It looks like the people using him are being pretty careful with that steal slider. Good defense, good offense. Only plays center field. So keep that in mind. Lots of plate appearances here. 10,000. Number 1 is Alek Thomas. Again, we didn't see a single left fielder on this list who has lefty splits. Well, I guess Dominguez kind of has lefty splits, but he's pretty mediocre defensively, pretty bad defensively among center fielders and should be a designated hitter. But Alek Thomas comes in at number 1. Very good center field ratings. The splits versus righties, again, are not huge. We talked about him in left field. Do you like him better as a left fielder or as a center fielder? He's grading out 2nd defensively in center field after being 2nd defensively in left field as well. And again, on his plays versus lefties or versus righties, it's just tough. Center field's tough, guys. I don't really want to know. Dominguez is a switch hitter as well. You say hopefully, but well, thank you for thinking the streams are great and informative. Hopefully I try to be. What do you guys think? Who do you guys want to see? We only had 7 guys qualify, so there's got to be somebody that you guys are seeing that's not, or maybe there's not. Maybe there's just no quality center fielders outside of Alek Thomas and Garrett Mitchell in the in low diamond. I like either one of these cards. I think you can be okay. I like Mitchell a little bit better as a starter, just because of the fact that Thomas can play multiple positions and be a utility guy. Springer. You're talking about live Springer? Looks pretty bad offensively. 218, 266, 336. Average on base percentage, slugging with a 602 OPS, 266 weighted on base average, but that's just 128. There's the All-Star George Springer too, who looks good in a 33 plate appearance sample size. Only 33 plate appearances for him, but a 419 average, 424 on base percentage. So I'm guessing he has a pretty low eye. 806 an 806 slugging and a 1231 OPS. Do I have these sorted by OPS? I have this list sorted by OPS right now, which is kind of hilarious. 513 slugging or weighted on base average for George Springer, which is pretty solid. That is he's expensive due to missions, and you just pulled an All-Star Springer off your Twitch drop. Let's take a look and see if we can find it. All-Star George Springer. Looks usable defensively, and splits versus lefties. Huh. Interesting. I don't have that card, unfortunately. We say it's expensive. I don't want to spend a ton of money on this team just because I don't do this format very often. You think he's part of the Reigns mission? He's key for both All-Star AL West and Reigns Build a Legend Diamonds. Yeah, that sounds like an expensive card. He's part of the Reigns mission. Yeah. Matt Kemp, Hardware Heroes. Matt Kemp. Hardware Heroes Matt Kemp, I only have 28 plate appearances on, but he looks pretty solid too. 440 average, 464 on base percentage. Let's check him out. Kemp. Hardware Heroes. Doesn't look as useful in center field defensively. Does he look like he could hit? Whew, that's tough. That 58 avoid Ks is a little bit scary versus lefties. I think he's bad versus righties based off of the eye test there. I think he can be usable versus lefties as a designated hitter. I don't love Kemp defensively in center field. You just pulled an Albert Almora Jr. Nice. And let's see, Matt Kemp, yeah, bad defense. What does my tournament roster look like? You only do the perfect team stuff. You don't have the roster for most tournaments. So my Diamond tournament roster right now is not good. It's very AI driven and packs driven. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of the low Diamond cards. These cards obviously... Ooh, Nate Eovaldi is up to a 98 overall. I like that. And so my team's kind of a mixed bag right now. This is not a team that I built. I put it together last Tuesday to start trying to get data because I was scrambling. I was like, I don't know what I want to do next week. I had run out of iron, bronze, silver, gold, and wanted to do something a little different. And so started gathering data on these guys, and this is not an optimized lineup. So we don't need to do that. You have Kemper, Dykstra. You love Dykstra. I do like that Dykstra. I think the Dykstra looks usable. As well as I think Mitchell looks usable in the right way. Dykstra looks good. The huge splits versus righties is a little bit concerning to me, but defensively he looks pretty good. I do like this Garrett Mitchell card. However, I'm going to plug him in for now. Let's do the right fielders. We had 12 qualifiers. Let's look at 12 and 11. 12 is Bill the Legend, Harry Heilman, who's grading out 4th offensively, but terrible defensively. This is still... Heilman continues to be an interesting designated hitter option. And with the format splitting versus lefties, I think he is perfectly usable as a designated hitter versus left-handed pitching. 1,300 plate appearances overall for him. I think a lot of that is going to be as a designated hitter. I would not play him in right field. But offensively, 4th among right fielders, 272 average, 332 on base percentage. I think people are plugging him in as designated hitter. I think these numbers would probably be a little bit better versus just lefties. So just keep that in mind. He comes in at number 12 among right fielders, though. Carlos Gonzalez comes in at number 11 versus in right field. So another guy, splits versus righties, unfortunately, in a really heavy left-handed pitching format as starters. I think he looks interesting as a bat off the bench to me. I think these numbers are probably a little bit better if you can hide him versus righties, if you can find ways to hide him versus righties, whether it's off the bench. Number 1 in center field was Alec Thomas. He was number 1 again. You think Eovaldi's a little high? I agree. I don't know that he's a 98, but they had to move somebody up, right? So Carlos Gonzalez at number 11. Number 10 is... Nope, skip. Number 9 is Giancarlo Stanton, Miami Marlins 2014 franchise heroes, splits versus lefties, grading out 12th offensively among right fielders, 5th defensively among right fielders. So solid defense in right field for Giancarlo Stanton. Pretty heavy splits versus lefties. You got 4 points of contact. You got 15 points of gap. The power splits a little bit towards righties. It's 8 points. You got 5 points of I and 11 points of avoid Ks versus lefties for Giancarlo Stanton. But not looking good. 219 average, 278 on base percentage. Both of those are ugly. 390 slugging, 668 OPS. 294 weighted on base average. Ugly numbers for Giancarlo Stanton right now. 22 home runs per 600 is number 1 among right fielders. So you got that, but still just 63 runs created. When you're getting 22 home runs and creating 63 runs per 600 plate appearances, that means you're bad. You're not a good hitter. And so not looking great in the format for Giancarlo Stanton franchise here. Snapshot Alex Burks comes in at number 8. They finally drop an Ellis Burks card on me, and it's the San Francisco Giants version of Ellis Burks. Little bit of a split versus righties here for Burks. 81 avoid Ks, so 2 points of avoid Ks. The eye actually splits towards lefties by 7 points, but you got 13 points of power, 6 points of gap, and 1 point of contact versus righties. Only plays right field. That's why you're seeing a pretty low plate appearances. He's not even top 10 in use. He's grading out 8th defensively in right field, grading out 6th offensively, but again, he's one of those guys that I don't think is terribly usable in the format right now. He comes in at number 8. Number 7, here's that Tuck Turner people were asking about. Grading out 9th defensively, so not great there defensively, but grading out 5th offensively. Splits towards, well, lefties, I guess, 2 points of contact and 1 point of eye, but otherwise no splits to speak of. This is a card that can play every day for you. If you want, it's going to have a solid batting average. Number 1 at 296. Good on base percentage at 334 is number 2. It's a very, very hit-driven on base percentage too, which we like. He does run 2nd in net steals per 600, 9th in stolen base percentage though, so you might want to be a little bit careful with that slider. Doesn't strike out, 36 strikeouts per 600 plate appearances. Doesn't hit for a lot of power, so if you're looking for power out of your right fielder, he's not the guy to do that, but a solid 750 OPS and a 329 weighted on base average. He's grading out number 5 offensively in right field, and number 9 defensively, so not great defensively. Plays multiple positions though, so I like this card. I think it's a pretty solid card. In gold, it looks like there's probably some diamond right fielders that stack up a little bit better than him offensively, though, than Tuck Turner. Special edition Carl Furillo from the 1953 Brooklyn Dodgers, grading out 11th defensively. But again, it's right field. It's not unusable defensively in right field, I don't think. It might be pretty close because of that 54 arm, but that's kind of up to you. Splits versus lefties, except in power, where you're getting 16 points of power versus righties for Furillo. 2nd offensively, 292 average, 324 on base percentage. 2nd in slugging, OPS, and weighted on base average at 459, 783, 340. You're going to get a lot of doubles. You're going to get a lot of batting average out of him versus lefties as opposed to versus righties. Only plays right field, but he plays right field. He only plays one position and is going to be the strong side of your platoon 80% of the time. So I definitely think it's usable, but you know, who knows? Looks like some people are using him as a designated hitter as well. So because he's not showing up here, looks like just barely above the 600 plate appearance mark for Furillo in right field. He's getting used as a designated hitter as well. Not a ton of power either. So, you know, 9th in home runs at 13. Number 1 in stolen base percentage. Couldn't never steal. He comes in at number 6. Number 5 is future legend Alex Kirilloff. Splits a little bit versus righties. Pretty close to significantly versus righties, to be honest. 89 contact, 102 gap, 82 power, 63 eye, 64 avoid K versus righties, as opposed to 79, 93, 77, 61, and 57. So you got 10 points of contact, 9 points of gap, 5 points of power, 2 points of eye, and 7 points of avoid Ks versus righties. What helps him out here just a little bit is that he does play some backup first base. So there's that. 16 home runs per 600, 274 batting average, 338 on base percentage, 448 slugging. Number 1 in OPS and weighted on base average among right fielders is pretty solid. He's grading out number 1 offensively. I could see him being useful as a backup or a right fielder versus right-handed pitching, and then a utility guy on his days off. It's a card that I think could definitely be useful that way. But he comes in at number 5. This is an interesting looking card. I don't think it's great. The on base percentage seems extraordinarily high to me right now. I think that probably comes back down probably closer to the 310 to 320 range with a higher plate appearance sample size. I just don't think he's going to walk enough to keep that on base percentage that high. But what are you guys' thoughts on this card? Anybody have thoughts on Kirilloff? Let me know. I'm going to move on, and you guys can throw your thoughts on Kirilloff in there. as we go. Mookie Betts, live Mookie Betts comes in at number 4. What? Grading out number 3 defensively. 9th offensively, though. 254 average, 311 on base percentage, 393 slugging, 704 OPS, and 311 weighted on base average. 8th and 9th in every single one of those categories. Betts got bumped to a 96 today. Nice. Back up to a 96, it looks like. 10 home runs, not a ton of power out of him. It's a very, this is a very defensive minded card in right field. Does have a center field rating, but it's not great. So he's out of the format. Okay, good to know. So we can ignore him then. We'll just move on to number 3. Number 3 is the other Mookie Betts. So this card looks interesting to me in the format. So 4th defensively, versus lefty splits. It's slight in contact and gap, but it gets a little bit bigger when you get down to the I and the avoid Ks. You're talking 17 points of avoid K and 11 points of I. Plays right field and center field, so maybe as the strong versus left side of your platoon with some backup center field and right field for you. Going on there. 8th in offense. 262 batting average is 8th. 327 on base percentage is pretty good. It puts him at 4th, and he can run the bases okay. He's not great. 4th in net steals among right fielders. Again, not a ton of power for this version of Mookie Betts. 2019 was not his MVP season. This was his Gold Glove season, so it's not that hardware heroes Mookie Betts. If it was a 2018, I think you'd probably see some better offensive numbers out of it, more than likely. But 11th in home runs per 600 among right fielders. 8th in OPS and weighted on base average. I don't think it's a must-use card in the format, but I think it's a usable card in the format. Coming in at number 3. Number 2 is Brian Jordan, Special Edition 1998 St. Louis Cardinals. Heavy splits versus lefties in every category. This is a good-looking card for this format. Plays some right field. Number 2 defensively. Number 7 offensively among right fielders. I'm a little surprised to see it this low. There might be some everyday play going on versus lefties and righties. I think this card will hit pretty good as a versus lefties. I think that you can at least coax this kind of numbers out of it versus righties. 269, 306 on base percentage is a little bit low, but hits for some power. 14 home runs, 4th in slugging, 6th in OPS, 7th in weighted on base average. Number 1 in WAR among right fielders, 7th in runs created per 600. Again, if you can somehow figure out a platoon here, I think he'll hit a little bit better versus lefties. Quite a bit better, actually. These are pretty hefty splits. Versus lefties. It's 4 points of I, 4 points of avoid K, 12 points of I, 18 points of power, 19 points of gap, and 12 points of contact. I really think this card can hit better than this versus lefties. I might be wrong. It's possible. I'm wrong every now and then. So he comes in at number 2 with pretty good defense to go along with it in right field. So maybe as a platoon with Kirilloff, who knows? Number 1 is Dave Parker. Dave Parker, maybe as a platoon with Dave Parker. In fact, this is a solid looking card versus righties, grading out number 1 defensively in right field. That defense on. Man, you're looking at some pretty solid defense between Jordan and Parker. And Parker dropping a number 3 offensive value among right fielders. Man, that looks expensive. Between the special edition Brian Jordan, which I think is Jordan a tournament reward as well, and a franchise heroes Dave Parker, that's going to be a pretty expensive platoon, especially since Parker only plays right field. But I got to be honest with you, I like the looks of it. That's a pretty solid platoon option. He's a tourney reward, 50K-ish last 10. This is a pretty solid card, man. If this format ever trends towards right-handed pitching at any point in the future, this card becomes a monster. It's tough. I think it plays versus lefties, to be honest. I don't think it, obviously the on-base percentage is going to be super low versus lefties, probably closer to like the 290-ish versus lefties, but I think it plays versus lefties. You're still going to get some power and some batting average out of it. This is a solid looking card. You got some base running ability here as well with defense. I like this card. I think this is a good card. You've never dropped a number 3 before. A 1 and 2, but never dropped a number 3. Interesting. This is a good looking card. All of these are solid looking cards. I like Mookie. Mookie's probably the cheapest bet at the top of this order, and hits versus lefties. And then let's see. Kirilloff versus righties. Maybe you're looking to go a little bit cheaper, a Mookie Kirilloff platoon or a Brian Jordan Kirilloff platoon. Both of these. So the Jordan we're saying is a 50,000 point tournament reward right now, and the Dave Parker obviously is a franchise hero, so he's going to be a little bit tough too. All right, so there you go, guys. Those are your hitters. We're going to move on to pitchers here in just a second. Are there any hitters that we didn't see at all today that you guys are interested in? And so I didn't fill the whole lineup. I'm going to go through and spend a little bit more time doing that later. But Johnny Callison. Let's see. I got 39 plate appearances. Doesn't look great, but it's hard to tell. 216 average, 256 on base percentage, 324 slugging, 581 OPS for Johnny Callison. 30 walks, 261. Hasn't hit a single home run for Johnny Callison. Also, congratulations. Did you end up winning the Perfect League last week, Bridev? That wasn't you. It was actually, who was it? It was Bluebird Silver. Is Bluebird Silver in here today? I haven't seen Bluebird Silver. 119 defense, so solid right field defense on Callison. Yeah, I don't have defense on this chart, unfortunately. Bumbry and Harry Walker. Bumbry, what am I doing? Oh, I just got lost for a second. Bumbry in 22 plate appearances has a 550 batting average, 591 on base percentage, 750 slugging, and 577 weighted on base average. We just got froze. That's the first time that's happened today with no home runs. Bumbry looks like a pretty solid on base percentage card. 22 plate appearances, 591 on base percentage, and 13.64 WAR per 600 for Bumbry. Right now, who was number one? Number one right fielder was 2 was Brian Jordan, 1 was Parker, Dave Parker. You made it to Perfect League last week. Night. I know Bluebird Silver messaged me yesterday and was in the finals. I don't know if they won or not. And then we're looking for Harry Walker. I spelt it wrong. Kurt Walker's the only one I have. I don't have anything on Harry Walker at the moment. I have Harry Hooper and Harry Heilman and Kurt Walker, but no Harry Walker. You think Cheeto won Perfect League last week? Oh well. And so those are your batters. All right. Ready for the pitchers? Let's do this. My chair started going down. Whoops. I didn't reset it. You just saw number 5 first. We only had 15 starting pitchers qualify. So for those who aren't here all that often, in order to qualify as a starting pitcher on these lists, you have to have 200 innings pitched and more than 4 innings pitched per game. So we had 15 players who qualified in that. Number 15 was live Herman Marquez. 15th and FIP. So it is now, for those who missed last week, it is now... Actually, hold on, because I don't think I updated the thing. Bear with me for just a second. I have to fix a calculation, because I didn't resave the template last week, so I need to go up here. And bear with me for just a moment. Actually, I don't know if I resaved that template at all. Give me 1 second. Where's my... I don't. So, unfortunately, I didn't resave the template, and I forgot about that. So, they are going to be ranked by FIP this week, which is sad. My bad. We'll fix it for next week. That was silly of me, and I should have caught that. But I did not. I am not hiring quality control people. I don't make extra money to pay for somebody. My bad. That's probably a number 16. There is not. Number 15 is German Marquez. He's 15th in FIP, 16th in ERA. Probably don't want to use him. 10th in strikeouts, 14th in home runs, 16th in walks for German Marquez. 92. I don't know what he's at now. I don't have the live updates, so this is just from the last week, so keep that in mind. Number 14 is live Steven Strasburg, who was a 94, was the 10th most used pitcher, but is 14th in FIP, 15th in earned run average at 5.3 and 5.62. 6.3 strikeouts, 1.32 home runs, and 3.94 walks per 9 innings for Steven Strasburg. Not great. Does strike people out, so he's got that going for him. And top 5 in innings pitched per game. Number 13 is live Kevin Gausman with 494 innings pitched. We're seeing a trend here. The bottom half of the starting pitchers, live cards don't work. 489 FIP, 470 slugging percentage. Brian Jordan is in perfect draft 2 right now if anybody's trying to win him. Go get him, guys. And then somebody sell him to me cheap. 16. I'm kidding. That's a joke. 16th out of 15. Actually, 15th in home runs per 9. That's another one of the things I need to fix when I redo the sheet this week. 333 walks per 9 is 13th. But second in strikeouts, 15th in innings pitched per game for Kevin Gausman, who's an 86. I have a feeling... What's he at now? Did he go up this week? He has to have gone up, right? Kevin Gausman is now an 80. He actually went down. This interesting. I got a pretty good haul in my Dynasty Fantasy League for Kevin Gausman. I just traded him recently, so I got Nick Prado and a couple other guys for him. I'm pretty happy with it. I really needed a first baseman, and I'm a little sad that Nick Prado just recently got called up to AAA because the Northwest Arkansas team, the Royals AA team, is coming down here to Little Rock next week. And both him and Bobby Witt Jr. got called up to AAA recently. So there's 2 players I was really looking forward to seeing that I'm not going to get to see next week. So I'm a little bit sad about that. It happens. It happens. Number 12 is rookie sensation Tim Belcher. 241 innings pitched. He's 12th in FIP, 12th in earned run average. Splits pretty heavy towards righties. Again, we talked about that. 54% righties, 37% lefties right now in the format. So Tim Belcher pitches a little bit versus righties. Solid innings pitched. He's 4th in innings pitched. Number 1 in strikeouts for Belcher, but the 449 FIP, 444 earned run average in a small sample size, admittedly, are not great. 101 stuff, 76 movement, 62 control. The 62 control is probably a little bit low. Again, I haven't looked much at this format, so a lot of this, when I start talking about your ratings as we get higher, is kind of off the cuff. We're gonna see what the guys at the top of the list look like because I don't really know who the best pitchers are in the format yet. So again, it's just as much of a surprise to me at this point. It is very heavy. So, at this point, throwing a right-handed pitching Tim Belcher out there might be good, but who knows. Number 11 is Jeff Pfeffer, right-handed pitcher. Good stuff. 72 movement versus righties, 84 control. 81, 68, 83 versus lefties, 107 stamina, 3rd in innings pitched per game, but FIP is 11th at 441. ERA is 14th at 4.7. Strikeouts per 9 is 571. Home runs per 9 is almost a full home run, and 2.43 walks per 9 innings. He's at number 11, 12th in all of your counting stats over here. 1.329 whip is 11th. Does eat some innings for you, though, does Jeff Pfeffer. Just doesn't do it particularly well. We are going to see some lefties near the top of this list, I believe. Adam Wainwright, build a legend, is at number 10. Throws righty, 401 FIP, 440 earned run average for Wainwright, 12th in whip, 9th in walks per 9 innings, 10th in home runs, and 11th in strikeouts. I'm not seeing anything on these first 5 guys that would make me say they should probably get more use than they're getting. They're mediocre at this point at best. The live cards look to be unusable, and at number 10, Adam Wainwright looks to be mediocre. Probably pretty cheap at this point. Probably not too expensive to build at this point if you're just looking for an innings eater in low diamond. But Wainwright comes in at number 10. Number 9 is Juan Marichal. starting pitching Juan Marichal with 5.26 innings pitched per game. He's 9th in FIP at 386, 10th in ERA at 410, 7th in strikeouts and home runs per 9 innings, and 11th in walks per 9 innings for Juan Marichal. You're just seeing some pretty low ratings here. Again, pretty heavy split, so 5 points of stuff, 3 points of movement, and a point of control versus righties for Marichal. And so he's definitely been... Who's that? Wainwright has been better than that for you. Marichal is 386, isn't a bad FIP. I think that that's perfectly usable. So if you're looking for a right-handed pitcher for your rotation to try to combat some of these very lefty heavy lineups, righty heavy lineups, I should say, then Marichal might be an interesting choice. 78 stuff, 70 movement, 87 control, and the numbers look okay. 305 innings pitched for Marichal. Number 8 is Jamie Moyer. We start getting into our more used guys here. Jamie Moyer is a left-handed pitcher. Pitches very well, splits in movement, 9 points of movement and 12 points of control versus lefties. 79 stuff versus 81 stuff versus righties. Decent stamina at 83. Good hold runners at 89. 379 FIP, 391 earned run average for Jamie Moyer, one of the most used guys in the format. Special edition Seattle Mariners 2002. Wainwright is a ground baller, so needs the D for sure. If you've got Belanger and one of the good defensive second basemen out there, then maybe he can be well. He's a fly ball pitcher, but not an extreme fly ball pitcher. 3/4, 93-95 for Jamie Moyer. 379 FIP, 391 earned run average, top 10 in strikeouts. Number 3 in walks per 9, 9th in whip for Jamie Moyer, coming in at number 8. Number 7 is John Tudor, who's your second most used pitcher in the format. No splits almost at all. You got 2 points of control as his only split. 73 stuff, 79 movement, 100 control versus lefties. Doesn't strike too many guys out. He's last in strikeouts, but doesn't let up too many home runs and doesn't walk anybody. 1.4 walks per 9 innings is elite. 1.201 whip is top 5 for John Tudor. 7th in FIP and 7th in earned run average for the fly ball pitcher. Left-handed, over the top. Fastball, changeup, slider, curveball mix for John Tudor at number 7. Number 6 is Nick Lodolo, who's your 7th most used. This is future legend Nick Lodolo. Very good stuff, high stuff. He's 3rd in strikeouts. Movement is okay, and the control is okay as well for Lodolo. 71 stamina, 67 hold runners. Only 4.1 innings pitched per game. I think you're seeing him get some bullpen use out there as well, but he's number 1 in whip among starting pitchers. You're seeing 50% start percentage for Lodolo, so he's when he's starting, it looks like he's probably putting up some decent innings pitched per game. 360 FIP, 338 earned run average. But as a starter, I will say you can probably expect both of those numbers to go up just a little bit, just because of the fact that it looks like maybe he's getting some follower use or something like that. So if you use him right, he's going to be effective for you, but just be careful with pitch counts and stuff like that for Lodolo. I think longer outings are probably going to inflate his numbers just a little bit. 3rd in strikeouts, 9th in home run suppression, and 8th in walks for Lodolo, but number 1 in whip. That's interesting to me that he lets up some home runs and walks some guys, but number 1 in whip is, when it's in play, it's bad contact when it's in play. Number 5 is Reed Detmers, who just got called up to AAA for the Los Angeles Angels. I know that because he's on my dynasty team, so I've been tracking him a little bit lately. Was lights out in AA for the Angels and is looking to continue that in AAA for the Los Angeles Angels. It'd be cool if they could get some pitching around Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Who knows? We'll see. 65% start percentage for Reed Detmers. 5 innings pitched per game. He's 5th in FIP, 4th in earned run average, 6th in whip. Top 5 in both strikeouts and home runs. And control's a little bit of an issue, but not too bad. 2.29. All of these guys have pretty good control at this point when you're looking at the low diamond teams. 99 stuff versus 96 stuff. 80 versus 78. I'm a little sad we don't have a Jordan Balazovic card here because I got to watch him pitch twice this week. For those who don't know, I'm an usher for the Arkansas Travelers, which is the Seattle Mariners AA team. They played the Twins team this week, and I'll tell you what, guys, Balazovic is fun. He's a good-looking pitcher. for the Twins. I think he's really close to being ready. But we won't talk about him because he's not on this list. Reed Detmers at number 5. 356, 341 earned run average. Number 4 is Dallas Keuchel. Continues to be a solid pitcher. Not too much of a split. You got 2 points of stuff versus righties, 2 points of movement versus lefties, and 3 points of control versus lefties. In a format that's a little heavy on the right-handed hitters, but Keuchel is effective versus righties as well. Number 3 in home run suppression, 6th in walks. Doesn't strike a ton of guys out, so you're going to see a little bit higher whip. But, you're going to want good defense. He's an extreme ground ball, so get that infield defense going for Dallas Keuchel, and he's going to pitch well for you. This is a card I've had a lot of luck with in gold, and it's a card that is still pitching well up to low diamond. You got to see Julio Rodriguez at Everett a few times. We don't have him. Yeah, hopefully we get him back after the Olympics. It's going to be at most 2 homestands probably. Maybe we'll get him back for the next homestand. I don't know. I haven't tracked the Olympics too much, so I don't know what's going on with them, and I don't know when they end. But I'm looking forward to getting him back. He is electric. He is awesome, and a lot of fun. He's going to be a really fun guy to root for the next 15 years, hopefully. Keuchel at number 4. You missed him in Everett. You're going to have to wait for him in Tacoma. I don't think it might be this year, Veggie. He is... He's got some work to do defensively in the outfield. Some of his reads off the bat have been a little bit sketchy. He's so fast. He's got so much speed and athleticism that he recovers well. But some of his reads off the bat, especially on like line drives in right and left field, have been a little bit questionable. But with the bat, he's polished. You can get him to chase stuff a little bit, but when he makes contact, it just sounds different than everybody else that I've heard at the level at AA this year. He's one of those guys that when you see him play, you can just tell that he's on a different level than everybody else. Jordan Balazovic was a lot of fun. So he's the number 2 prospect in the Twin system right now, I think. Just outside of the top 100 overall, if I'm not mistaken. And so I watched him on Tuesday and Sunday, and on Tuesday he was filthy. On Sunday, he got hit around a little bit, but it was the team's second time seeing him this week, so I'm not real surprised. We have an okay offensive team. Not great, but he's got a really repeatable delivery, really good off-speed stuff. His delivery is very consistent. It's a really consistent, really repeatable delivery. No, I don't. I think he's probably got another year left. I think he'll be up next year. Maybe get him to AAA before the end of the season. He just went 4 starts without allowing a run before Sunday's game. So I would expect to see him in AAA before too long. But I don't know that he'll be in the pros this year, Balazovic. I don't know if he's going to be all the way up this year. But I don't think he's far off. I think he's pretty polished for not sure how old he is off the top of my head, but he's pretty polished for a guy that's in AA right now. He looks really good. Really repeatable delivery. And a fun pitcher to watch. Keuchel at number 4. So this Keuchel threw a 10-inning Maddox in Gold League. A 10-inning Maddox? Nice. Yeah, the Keuchel card is awesome. It's a really good card. Number 3 is Bobby Ojeda. 94 rated. 3/4 delivery neutral. 28% proven winner alert. 3rd and 5th in earned run average. 2nd in home run suppression. 2nd in walk suppression. Again, similar to Keuchel in that he's a high movement, high control guy. A little bit lower stuff even than Keuchel. 85 movement, 82, 93 versus 94 with a solid fastball, changeup, curveball. Just really similar to Keuchel. And both of them are pitching pretty well at this point. So it seems like high movement, high control are solid options here in low diamond. And Ojeda is one of those. Number 1 in innings pitched per game for Ojeda as well. At 6.51. 90% start percent. I don't know what that was. I think that was a banana. My wife just walked in and gave me food. Hopefully it's not poison. Number 1 in innings pitched per game, 3rd and 5th in ERA. Solid home run and walk suppression for Ojeda. Made your first appearance and perfectly started pretty good, about 500 at the break, then the wheels fell off. Yeah, I was at 500 pretty early in the week, and then the wheels fell off. and diamond for me. Andy Pettitte comes in at number 2. Another high movement, high control guy. Look at that. Splits versus lefties, pretty heavy splits versus lefties. So he's only seeing a 72% start percentage, unlike Keuchel and Ojeda. Well, Keuchel's at a 66. Ojeda at a 90% start percentage. So Pettitte at a 72. Number 2 in FIP, number 1 in earned run average for him. Number 1 in home run suppression, number 4 in walks, number 3 in whip for Andy Pettitte. Number 2 in innings pitched per game as well. Another really solid card. This is a very lefty heavy format, and I'm seeing why. These left-handed cards are really, really solid at a lot of different things. So Pettitte is looking pretty good. And number 1 is Sixto Sanchez, who is like a Dallas Keuchel or a Bobby Ojeda, except with 30 more points of stuff. Number 1 in FIP, number 3 in earned run average, top 5 in strikeouts, home runs, walks. This card is filthy. Wow. 4th in home runs per 9, 5th in walks per 9, 5th in strikeouts, 2nd in whip. Guys, Sixto looks great. This is a really, really good looking card to me. Sixto, Pettitte, Ojeda, Keuchel, Detmers. I think the Detmers looks okay. Lodolo looks okay, and then Tudor. So, you're seeing your top 7. The people have spoken. The top 7 or 8 are who was outside of that? Moyer. Yeah, the top 8 are the top 8 on the list. So, people know what they're doing up here at Low Diamond. And this Sixto card is just pure filth. This Sixto card is just absolutely very little splits. 4 pretty solid pitchers, good stamina. The hold runners, it's not a format where there's a ton of steals, so who cares that it's only a 54? Just set them to not hold runners very often. Filthy card. Those are your starting pitchers. Pretty sure the Red Sox traded this entire top 10 for Wes Gardner back in the 80s. It's possible. So yeah, those are your starters. You just got them last night. And those were all your starters that qualified. Let's go to the relievers where we had 32 qualifiers. So there's 32 guys who are below 4 innings pitched per game, which tells me maybe I need to make some adjustments on the innings pitched per game cutoff. But for now, this is what we're seeing. No, we don't want to start at number 10. Number 15 is Trevor Hoffman, special edition. We're going to burn through these just a little bit. He's the 7th most used, 15th in FIP, 15th in earned run average. Has some home run issues for Trevor Hoffman. Throws right-handed extreme fly ball. Number 14 is player of the month, Zach Wheeler. Boy, has he been filthy this year. Just nasty pitcher this year. Right up there with that other guy who's been really good, DeGrom. Who's been awesome. We'll check Drabek in a minute. He might show up here. But we'll check. I have to do some filter stuff for the pictures, so it becomes a little bit of a mess. And so we'll check the pictures afterwards. Wheeler at number 14. 14th and FIP, but 21st in earned run average for Wheeler. Number 13 is Josiah Gray. High stuff, high movement, lowish control. 13th in FIP, 16th in earned run average, top 10 in strikeouts, 19th in home runs, and 13th in walks, 11th in whip for Josiah Gray, future legend. Future legend Spencer Howard. Spencer Howard got the call up to the major leagues and is pitching for the Phillies now. I know this because he's on my fantasy team. I think we're about 2 years away from competing, but I've done some work on them this year, and I think we're getting there. But this Spencer Howard is 12th in FIP, 9th in earned run average, 8th in whip. 15th in walks, 13th in home runs, and 14th in strikeouts. So top half of everything, just a solid, consistent card for Spencer Howard out of the bullpen. Number 11 is Jason Isringhausen, peak legend from the St. Louis Cardinals. Man, he was filthy for a couple years, wasn't he? Not much of a split. You got 5 points of movements, 3 points of control, and 1 point of stuff split versus righties. 11th in FIP, 12th in earned run average, 15th in strikeouts, 8th in home run suppression, 17th in walks per 9 innings, and 1.346 whip has him at number 16 for Isringhausen. Grayback, you think he's number 1? We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Had to step out. Did the 89 JT Snow make the first base list? No, JT Snow wasn't on this list. We didn't have any data on him for this list. He was definitely on the gold list last week, though. I think he was number 2. No, he might have been. Yeah, he was number 1 or number 2 on the gold list at first base last week for the gold format. This is low diamond, though. Sixto went 316 ERA, 1.15 whip, and 15 starts. That is pretty darn solid. I would take that in a heartbeat. Isringhausen at 11. Special edition Rich Harden at number 10. Another high stuff, good movement, lower control guy, 20th in walks, but top 5 in strikeouts and top 10 in whip. He's 10th in FIP and a 358 earned run average for Rich Harden at number 10. He's your second most used as far as innings pitched, and 3 innings pitched per game for Rich Harden too. So you're seeing some start percentage in there as well. So I feel like out of the pen, you might even see numbers a little bit better than this for Rich Harden, but it looks like he's probably at least semi-usable as a starting pitcher if you want to go that way too. The splits aren't very big. It's just 3 points in stuff and movement and 1 point of control versus righties. He is a right-handed pitcher, so keep that in mind. Number 9 is 2007 snapshot Mariano Rivera. A couple of 2007 Yankees on the list today. Was not a great season for them. It was a much better season for the Red Sox. Pretty big splits here for Mo. You got 8 points of stuff, 6 points of movement, and a point of control for him. A 367 FIP, 338 earned run average, both top 10. 5th in whip for Rivera, top 10 in home runs, 5th in walks per 9 for Mariano Rivera as well. Lower stuff, so 27 strikeouts per 9. He gets his movement and contact or control are the bread and butter for Mariano Rivera as well. Will these be? Yeah. I'm gonna. I have to get the gold list up from last week too, so that's where I got to get that one up too. I know I didn't get it up last week for the list, and so I have to do. I have the list. I have to build it. Is where the issue comes in, and so I don't always remember. He's a number 9. Number 8 is future legend Braylon Marquez from the Chicago Cubs. This is a guy who did not pitch well for my Cubs in the OHBL and ended up moving on very quickly, but his future legend card looks pretty darn good. 109, 112 stuff, 77 movement, 79 movement versus righties, and 71, 72 control versus lefties and righties. The stamina is a little bit low. You're seeing only 2.3 innings pitched per game, 17% start percentage for Braylon Marquez. He's 8th in FIP, number 1 in earned run average at 2.66. So I did not combine them this week like I did last week, again, because I'm an idiot, but he's number 1 in ERA over the last 939 innings pitched. Good looking relief pitcher card for your low diamond teams. Number 7 is Bob Locker. 616 innings for Bob Locker right now. Heavy splits versus righties. Looks like he's one of the first guys in this list that we've seen that I think is a true specialist. Kind of has to be used versus righties. An extreme ground ball sidearm pitcher with a sinker slider combination. 104 movement versus righties. He's number 1 in home run suppression. 0.19. There are not many guys in these tournaments that I see that have a 0.19 home run per 9 innings. Maybe in like the unsung heroes tournaments or like dead ball tournaments or something like that. But a 0.19 home runs per 9 innings is elite. The problem is his stuff versus lefties is pretty bad. And so if you can get some lefties in your lineup against him, he's probably going to get hit a little bit hard. His movement versus lefties isn't bad, but it's absolutely elite versus righties. 7th in FIP, 7th in earned run average, top 5 in control as well, with a 2.16 walks per 9. But again, that whip of 1309 is good for just 14th. Definitely a little bit of a right-handed specialist. You have a lot of fun with gold too, but you're just not good at it. It's low diamond's fun. I like gold. I haven't delved into the low diamond too much. 'Cause like I said, it's just my team's an AI team right now. I'm going to try to spend some time putting it together this week. And then hopefully next month I'll have a better idea of what's going on here. Ryan Presley comes in at number 6. Live? Ryan Presley came in at number 6. Is he still usable? Let's find out. Did he change? He's still a 92. So, Presley is still usable. Looks like he stayed a 92. Solid stuff. 81 movement, good control. Again, some splits here versus righties, so a little bit of maybe a specialist, and I think that I think that Locker is a little bit better as a right-handed specialist than Presley, but he's sixth and fifth in earn run average, and an admittedly small sample size of 348 innings for Presley. Number one in walks per 9 innings for him. Bronze is great because it goes so quickly. Is Presley hurt in real life? Good question. Let's find out. Presley news. RotoWire says. No, he pitched yesterday. He pitched 2 days ago, so should not be injured in real life. He got his 18th save on whatever the 25th was. So 2 days ago, he got his 18th save. So it does not look like he's hurt in real life. But a little bit of a specialist versus righties here at number 6. Number 5, another guy who splits a little bit towards righties. A very effective gold card. Very effective here in low diamond as well so far. 330 FIP, 288 earned run average for Rafael Betancourt. Second in walk suppression. You wish they would turn bronze and iron off for a week to see how it changes all the other styles. You have to wait a long time. I don't think that's going to happen. Interesting thought, but I don't think that's something that's going to happen. 20th in strikeouts for Betancourt, so he's not quite the strikeout guy he is in gold, but home run suppression's pretty good, 14th out of 32, and walk suppression, and number 1 in whip. Even here at low diamond, Rafael Betancourt is a pretty solid relief pitching card. Number 4 is Raleigh Fingers, limited edition Raleigh Fingers. Well, that's just unfair. There's no more than 25 of these guys. In fact, there's probably only 25 of these guys. A little bit of a split towards righties. 12 points of stuff, 8 points of movement, and 1 point of control versus righties. 32% of his winning percentage. He's a proven winner. Only 309 innings pitched because none of us have him. So, looks good though. 321 FIP, 329 earned run average, 7th in home runs, 6th in walks. And top 10 in whip for Raleigh Fingers, number 4 in FIP. Number 3 is Bobby Parnell, another guy with pretty big splits versus righties, but still pretty good movement versus lefties as well. Just keep in mind that if you don't have good defense, this could be a recipe for a long inning from Bobby Parnell. Good stuff. 78 stuff, 101 movement, 87 control versus righties. 32% of his potential points is at 32.69. I think you'd see a lot shorter queues in gold, low diamond. I think that the silver and gold kick off at a reasonable pace. It's once you get into, I really wish that like the historical stuff would kick off a little bit more often, because that's what I'm trying to collect data on right now. I think that, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Bobby Parnell's at number 3. Number 2 is, no, live Josh Hader comes in at number 2. Let's make sure he's still usable. And I did not adjust, so he's still a 92. Oh, he's hurt, I think. I think he's hurt in real life. You get 1 or 2. Let's see, of course, one of you specialize in live, you get 2 or 3 of those per day. Yeah, the lives don't kick off all that much. 182. 75 movement, 51 control versus lefties. So a little bit, you got the lefty specialist going on, which is something you don't see too much of here in the format. Second in FIP, third in ERA for Josh Hader. Looking like a pretty solid lefty specialist. He probably does not get used very much simply because there's only 37% left-handed hitters. Number 3 in strikeouts, number 6 in home run suppression as well. Does have a little bit of a control issue, so keep that in mind, but still 6th in whip for Josh Hader over a small 289 inning pitched sample size. Number 1 relief pitcher for low diamond is Bert Roberge. 78 stuff, 93 movement, 89 control versus lefties, 30% proven winner alert. Doug Drabek at number 1 in innings pitched. Let's find him and see where he is. 6th in earned run average, 1st in FIP for him, 2nd in home run suppression, 3rd in walks, over 875 innings pitched for Roberge. He comes in at number 1. Lots of versus righties guys. Lots of guys who split versus righties. Not quite specialist category, I don't think, but borderline. You got 9 points of stuff. You got 8 points of movement and a point of control versus righties for Roberge. Let's find Draybeck is at 16. So what can we say about Draybeck? 3.89 innings pitched per game, 397 FIP would be pretty solid, probably top 5 among starting pitchers. Let's check real quick. 3.97. 3.97 would have him at right around the top 10, right around 9 or 10 among starting pitchers. But again, keep in mind that's a little bit of a small sample size there. 426 earned run average for Draybeck as well. But as a relief pitcher, you can see those numbers would probably be a little bit lower if he was, when you're using him as a relief pitcher. It's a 60% start percentage, 3.89 innings pitched per game for Draybeck. Use him at closer stopper, perhaps. Use him as a, doesn't necessarily need to be a specialist. You're going to want to have him pitch around a little bit. I think the movement might let up some home runs. He is 23rd in home runs and 25th in strikeouts. Good control, decent whip for Doug Draybeck. Where do we think he'd be more effective? Any data on 93 Bedard? We'll see. I'm going to go back through the 32 really quickly just to see who's here. As Roberge, use him at closer stopper. Yeah, perhaps. I think you could. It's sorry, I gotta click through all of these because I don't have numbers for the things. So for Roberge, I think he could be a closer, maybe a stopper. It's good movement either way. I think you're going to avoid the home runs. I think if you're using him as a closer, I hope you have really good defense. I think you can get away with less defense, versus righties if you're using him as a righty specialist, but I don't think he's unusable as a closer or stopper either. He'd be effective at pitching batting practice with those numbers, perhaps. You think for Draybeck? Let's see. 17 is Melly Wolfgang. 18 is Brian Fuentes. 19 is Jim Maloney. 20 is Andy Ashby. 21 is Build a Legend Nagy. 22 is Live Ken Giles. Tex Houston at 23. Build a Legend Tom Glavine finally at number 24, not looking good. His gold card looks okay. His perfect card is okay. The low diamond card, not as great. Tim Hudson at 25. Hubble, 26. Denny Nagel, Special Edition, 27. Gio Gonzalez, 28, Special Edition. Lucas Gill, Future Legend, 29. Glasnow at 30. Yu Darvish, 31. Aaron Nola, 32. Who were we looking for? 4 times as many innings for Roberge as he had in his entire career. That's funny. We were looking for Bedard. All right, let's go over here. Let's clear our... Not that one. That's the wrong sheet. Pitching stats. Clear our filters and see what we got on Bedard. He'd be effective at pitching batting practice. Draybeck, yeah. Doesn't look great. Bedard. Nothing on Bedard. Not even a single inning. Let's see if we can find him. Not even here. I don't have it. Bedard. Not even here. So I don't have any data on Bedard. Not sure if you can use him due to his low move. Yeah, I don't have anything on Bedard. I don't know. I don't even know what the card looks like, if I'm going to be totally honest. So there you go. Those are your lists for this week. I said I was going to look at something else. I don't remember what it was. I'm going to be crazy. I'm doing something crazy today, guys. You pulled him a couple weeks ago. He's a so-so card. We're going to open packs. Oh, the gold historical. That's what I wanted to talk about. Sorry. We're going to get to packs in just a second. What time is it? 2. I still got to get to the gym today. Good gracious. This one, oh, I'm in it, waiting for it to start. We're at 11 of 32. So these 1949 round robins, guys, they finally got bumped up to 5 standard packs. Let me show you what it looks like when you get to go into it. Let's go to my tournaments, and we'll just open this one up for the heck of it. So it's round robin. The finals are best of 3. They got bumped to 5 standard pack rewards. I'm trying to get data on them. I want to do them in a couple weeks. Guys, you win what? 3, 4, 5, 6. You win 6 games and you're getting at least a pack. You win 7, you're getting at least 2 packs. You win 7 games, or what is it, 8 games, you're getting 5 packs now. So it's start joining these. They're fun. The numbers are going to be different. So what I love about these, so for those who stick mostly to the regular quick tournaments, like this one's 1949. So you're going to see more of a like 3-4 man pitching staffs. Again, this is kind of an AI team for me right now. I haven't really built it yet because I haven't had a chance to look at the data. So there's that one. Let me go to, let's go all modes, go round robin, finals best of 3. So it's really these 3. So the silver historical 1981, the gold historical 1949, and then the open at 1969. This one I'm not into much yet because I don't have a team that's gonna really compete in that. I don't think, but they're fun. I like them because they give different stats than open and stuff. So hop in on them with me. Specifically, this gold historical 1949 one right now. It's the one I'm working on data for. I don't have a ton of it yet. And so, but it's picked up a little bit over the last couple days. I'm pretty happy about that. It's not once every 3 days now. It's like one or two a day now. So that's nice. We're gonna buy all of these packs. We're just gonna spend all 30,000 points on packs and see what we get. See if we can't finish some collections today. Maybe get a big hit. That was the wrong tab. Player card packs, because we're crazy. Bad life decisions. 36 packs. Let's see how it goes. Adam Jones for the O's. Let's see, who are we talking about? Who's that? Bedard? Yeah. Bedard. Yeah, because he went from been trying to get the goal. You've been trying to do the gold historical. I like it. I think it's fun, and I love round robin format. How did I? Yeah, 36 packs. Here we go, guys. All time bad, good trade. Love those as being as long as your team isn't doing the bad part of it. That's fair. You're calling pack 15 for a historical perfect. We'll get an Austin Romine here and a Bobby Castillo. Bronze, and then a bunch of iron stuff. And the iron historical. Daily iron historical. I think I want to do, maybe not next week because I want to hit bronze next week. I know that's everybody's favorite. I want to get the live updates on the bronze, but in 2 weeks, I think I'm going to do that daily iron historical tournament, and I've got data coming on that right now. Anyone play the daily take a chance? I haven't done that one yet. Ooh, Patsy Doherty is a duplicate Yankee. Not part of any collections. Of course, I get a silver Yankee that's not part of any collections. Interesting pack there. Randy Heflin, Bill Foxton, lots of bronze here in this pack. Foxton's a new one. Not any collections, goes for 210. He might have been in that last bronze drop. I can't remember. Nelson Crow. 3rd, 4th last night. What? Daily take a chance. I'll have to take a look at that. There's Aaron Bummer. Jerry Garvin. Chasen Shreve. Ouch. 50-point pack. Castro, Pablo Sandoval, Patrick Wisdom, Alfred Madero, Luke Williams. Yuck. 100 points in the last 2 packs. Jackson Kovar is on my fantasy team as well, so I'll just throw that out there. Nobody cares about your fantasy team. New team missions on Thursday. Cool. So I'm going to hang on to everything till Thursday. Here's our first goal of the day. It's Matt Barnes, who was up to an 84. You know, it wasn't as lights out in July as he was in April, May, and June. Came back to earth a little bit, but still been pretty effective for the Red Sox. I'm happy with him. Here's a silver Trevor Larnach. Lots of live silvers and gold so far. Amir Garrett. Javi Baez walked off on or hit a grand slam off of Amir Garrett yesterday. I think it was a walk-off, if I'm not mistaken. And from what I hear, Garrett was not real happy about it. And about Baez's reaction to it. 4-game series too, so that should be fun tonight. Walk-off single, that's okay. I know I heard about it, and I heard that there was some bad blood going on in game 1 of a 4-game series. Gary Ronicki is a new card, not a collection completing card for me. 24 packs left. He showboated all the way down first base, walk-off, sack. Yeah, interesting. Jordan Adams, California Angels future legend. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim future legend. Part of... Who's their future legend? I don't even know. There's a Jake Bowers, 2018 Jake Bowers, Buster Mills. 40.K. Baez has been... So for those of you who follow me, my OHPL streams, I know I haven't been back to it. I've been so lazy this summer. The Cubs, it's the second week. Our first diamond is Ryan Presley, who we just looked at. I know it's been a quiet summer for me in the OHPL. We've got 4 weeks left. The Cubs are currently holding the second wild card spot. 1 game out of the first wild card, but there's like 4 teams. We're tied with a team for the second wild card slot. I want to say it's Arizona is in first. Me and Atlanta are tied for the second wild card, and then there's like 4 teams within a game or 2 of us. The Pirates, the Giants are within 3 games. The Dodgers are right there as well. So it's coming down to the wire, and we just lost our number 2 starter until the springtime. So I'm a little unhappy. About that part. Alec Thomas is the Diamondbacks future legend. Yeah, Alec Thomas is the Diamondbacks future legend. It was... We'll check. Here's a diamond Aaron Nola. We're going to have to sell that one. Schwarzak. Julio Gauthier. But we're close, and we just got Pablo. So it was awful because my bench coach skipped a spot in the rotation. I had an opener follower in the rotation, but he used my opener the day before my follower was supposed to go. I'm using Joey Lucchesi as a follower this week, and it got the whole thing messed up. So he skipped them to go to the next pitcher, and then the next day, instead of going back, he put Palumbo on the mound on short rest, and Palumbo threw out his shoulder. And we just lost Joe Palumbo, who had a 3.1 earned run average or something. He was number 2 on the team in earned run average on the season. For the rest of the season, the week we got Pablo Lopez back off the injured list. So we finally got our team back together, our rotation back together, and my bench coach messed it up and killed my... Detmers. Yeah, Reed Detmers. Good-looking relief pitcher. So I'm pretty unhappy with my bench coach right now. And if we miss the playoffs because of that, he might get fired because my coach in AAA is probably the best coach in the minor leagues right now. And I've been trying to figure out a way to call him up the last couple seasons. But Scooter Tucker might be getting fired in the OHPL. You're hoping Team Mission shake up Low Diamond a little bit? Perhaps. We'll see. Harlan Poole. That's a new bronze for me. 10 packs left. This is all we got today. But if you're not in an online league, guys, do it. It's so much fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm in 2. 2 is probably too many. Luckily, one of them's a little bit smaller, and my team is awful this year, so I've been able to not pay as much attention to them. But seriously, if you're not in an online league and you enjoy Out of the Park, I highly recommend it. Got a diamond player in the pack you got from the stream. Congratulations. We're down to 6. This is our last not stream pack. So the last 5 are our stream packs, right? That's an ugly pack. So here's our stream packs. Ready? I hope I get as lucky as you guys. Yes. We got a 96 Hank Greenberg from our first stream pack. That worked out well. 20,000 point card, part of Historical Player of the Month, which we've already completed, sadly. Does he play? 96 rated card, 88 contact, 103 power, 69. That's a solid looking card. That's a solid looking card right there. Earn me back the points I just spent. Player of the month, Hank Greenberg. There's another Jackson Kovar. G-Man Choi. For the Rays. Nagowski. Nagowski's an interesting iron card. Here comes Trevor Bauer. Gross. We're just going to skip that one. We're not even going to let the funfetti come down for Trevor Bauer. Alfaro Kemp. Final pack of the day is Pierce Johnson and nothing else. I don't think I completed any missions today. I do not believe I completed any missions today. Let's find out and make sure. Only incomplete. Or I did not. Lots of incomplete missions. 110 to be exact. A little bit rough. A little bit rough. Good packs today, though. Hank Greenberg. You got a Sandberg in your stream packs. Congratulations. Let's check out that Greenberg. Oh, he's right there. What am I doing? Not a terrible looking card. The defense is leaves a little be desired. Splits versus lefties. Solid versus lefties. I don't think he plays on the team right now. We're running Build a Legend Pete Rose and George Sisler, who's just an absolute monster out there at first base. And splits versus righties. So maybe as a platoon with Sisler if we decide to run Pete Rose as a designated hitter, but that's where we've got Bagwell right now. Wait. That doesn't make any sense. I'll figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing with this team right now. They're okay. They're not great. Probably going to be okay in gold again. We're up to, 17 and 19 right now. I don't know. Guys, that's the stream for today. Next week's going to be bronze with the live update. The week after that, I think, is probably going to be Iron Historical. And then we'll figure it out from there. But next week will be bronze. I know that's everybody's favorite stream every month is the bronze with the live updates. So we're going to start getting those live updates down in the bronze this week. And we'll see what they look like next Tuesday. So thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I'm not going to make any promises on streams later in the week, but I will try to stream on my channel later in the week with the OHBL, especially if the Cubs manage to stay in the wild card race. This is a really, really big week for us. We're playing our next 2 weeks of streams. So tomorrow and Friday are all against teams that are in the wild card hunt with me. So it's terrifying. It's tough. Thanks again for hanging out with me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week here with bronze. Again, as always, thanks for the support, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.